Good morning. It is June 2nd. It is the second day of Pride Month. It is currently 9:23. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderman Devoti.
Present.
Chair Aldrich.
Present.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Velasquez. We have 4 present. We have quorum.
Thank you. With that, Madam Clerk, we have established quorum. I will take a motion to minutes from May 27th, May 28th, 2025.
Second.
Moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderman Devoti.
Aye.
Chair Aldrich.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Velasquez. We have 4 aye votes.
Thank you. With that, we will move on to board bills for review. Today, we will review board bill number 1, which is the city FY26 budget. We have no resolutions today for committee discussion, so we'll come back to board bill for review because today we will be passing out finally board bill number 1. But for committee discussion, we're going to hear from the Sheriff's Department. Today is our last day for public testimony to hear from the public on the FY26 budget. And then after public testimony, this committee will do markups, or what they call it locally, adding amendments to the budget bill to send to ENA, which ENA has agreed to have a meeting this Wednesday. And then the budget committee will have an additional meeting this Thursday to vote out the budget to send it to the. With that, we're going to start with our first committee discussion, which is the sheriff. If you want to come on up, there was a request from the committee. We did hear from the sheriff's budget already. There was a request for the committee to ask the sheriff to come back and talk about not only the budget. We all received a letter about not continuing the transport of inmates, and have also been made aware of some fiscal issues of being kind of in the red. So I will let you start off, Sheriff, before I go into my colleagues. I think you a little bit are aware of what we are looking for, unless colleagues wanted to ask a question first. Okay. You may proceed, Sheriff. Please turn on your mic, state your first and last name, and then the department you with.
Sheriff Alfred Montgomery. First and foremost, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to come before the board again. Let me first start by saying, after a very productive discussion with you, Mr. Chairman, and also Alderwoman Sanye, we have decided to continue transporting and watching detainees needing medical care on a temporary basis. We all here were elected for a position. In our position, like you all on the board, you look at city ordinance and different laws with what regarding city residents. Same as the sheriff look at different policies that needs to be updated, different policy and procedures that we can potentially make better, or policies that's outdated to kind of renew. Let me start off by saying, as we look into the medium term, it's clear that our operations team has identified the need for additional 25 full-time employees here at the Sheriff's Office to ensure that our hospital unit can function sustainably. I want to emphasize 2 critical points here. First and foremost, this decision is rooted in our collective commitment to justice. As we all know, criminal justice reform is our priority. It's what I ran on. Criminal justice reform is necessary in order to move our city forward. Upholding the dignity of the justice system and ensuring the rights of the detainees are fundamental principles that guide my role. Criminal justice reform was a core element that I ran on, and it remains my top priority. Second, we must prioritize the safety in both our sheriff deputies and also the care of our detainees and the care of the CJC. If this operation becomes unsafe, we will have no choice but to reevaluate our approach. Short staffing this unit is simply not an option. It creates an unsafe environment for everyone involved, the detainees, the deputies, and also the public that have to see doctors as well as those detainees in the hospital setting. Currently, we are incentivizing deputies to take on these additional responsibilities through overtime payment, meaning there's not a simple budget line in our budget at all. We are reviewing different laws, also city ordinance, surrounding who is actually responsible for transporting these detainees. Now, I want to draw to the committee's attention to the fact that while the CJC has nearly 100 vacant FTE slots, my department is essentially fully staffed. However, achieving and maintaining full staffing levels with qualified, fairly compensated employees comes at a cost. In the short term, we will require additional $35,000 in overtime, along with $15,000 for performance, as outlined in our revised budget proposal. Additionally, we will need $30,000 as a stopgap to replace the outdated tasers that are required for this unit. I would also remind the committee again that our computers will go dark in November without hardware replacements. We have a quote for about $258,000 for this replacement. If we are unable to have those funds appropriated here, we will almost certainly ask for a supplemental appropriation later this year. Now, there have been some questions about deficit within our office. I also want to address that. I also wish to point out that the committee that our current deficit has two causes. The first, approximately $430,000 in payouts to outgoing administration, ran 3 days before we took out office, meaning the previous administration were paid overtime payment to go to school, the same that Kim Gardner was charged with. We paid them to go to school. Well, they left, and they were paid out that comp time. They were paid out in cash, that comp time, for that time that they went to school. Second, while the past administration have used department revenue funds to pay for items, we have endeavored to be more accountable using those funds only as they were intended. This means that we have drawn on city appropriations as intended. So you may see that within the deficit as well. I am committed to working with the Board of Aldermen and also other city offices. We simply cannot fulfill our core duties to the courthouse as well as the additional hospital unit responsibilities without the right resources. Now, I understand that this has happened in the past. I understand that this is something that's ongoing. I've heard this a lot, that this is something that we have been doing, just continue it. My job as the sheriff is to review policies and procedures in place and to see how we can work together. I have requested to meet with the mayor's office. We don't have an MOU in place. We don't have a memorandum of understanding in place, even with CJC doctors at all, or even with the hospital. So we're kind of working in the dark here. I brought with me today my colonel, a 30-year veteran at the Sheriff's Office, Colonel Yosef Yashala, with the history and institutional knowledge of the Sheriff's Office, how it used to operate, how we used to transport these detainees using the hospital unit that we once had in the Sheriff's Office. I also brought with me Major Lee Stokes, who is the Major of Operation, and also Deputy Chief Sykes, who's also over operations within the Sheriff's Office, to explain to you guys more why this is very important. I also have with you Director of Physical Operation, Tashana Sayas, and she will explain to you more in depth the breakdown of the budget and why we are facing the deficit. And that's all I have at this time.
Since we're on the topic of the jail, as far as the transport, and gonna have questions on your budget, if you want to have anyone from your department talk about the transport program that you have, and maybe it sounds like you used to have more units. Then if you want to have Ms. Shazana, okay, if I'm saying that wrong, okay, I'm probably saying it wrong, I'm so sorry. Talk about where we are with the budget and maybe speak a little bit more into why the budget is in the red for the Sheriff's Department. So whoever you want to bring up.
Absolutely, I'll call up Colonel Yashala.
Good morning.
So please, everyone that comes up from the Sheriff's Office, please state your first and last name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Yosef Yashala. I'm the Colonel of Operations with the St. Louis Sheriff's Department. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you guys for allowing me to speak. I've been with the Sheriff's Department for over 30 years. I started under Jim Murphy, who was an exceptional sheriff. me and Murphy had the opportunity to change the appearance of the sheriff department. I was the one to give them new uniforms and new codes where they can use to operate the radios. Secondly, when Murphy was the sheriff, he had this unit was called the jail unit. The jail unit covered all the necessities, the things that you guys are asking for. Somehow, somewhere in between the time of Murphy and Betts, Murphy disbanded the jail unit. The jail unit then was no more because we lost deputies. So when Betts came on, he neglected the courts and started to do things concerning the jail. That's why the judges came up with the idea that they will hire their own bailiffs and get rid of the sheriff department. But they were waiting till after the election to see if Vernon was no longer going to be the sheriff. Well, now that we have Sheriff Alfred Montgomery, we sat down with Mayor Jones' administration, and she asked, well, not her, but Nancy Cross asked the question, so Colonel, what do you need? I told her we need at least 25 deputies, at least, to run this unit. She said, I couldn't give you 25, but I can give you 20. I said, well, I can make 20 work. Then we went over and talked to, at that time, Public Safety Director Coyle. And then he said, well, okay, well, we could do the 20, but we're going to need 2 deputies each shift to work the front desk security. So I'm like, you took away 5, and now you're asking, and you have to understand, he's thinking just two deputies, but you have to understand you have to have a swing shift, and you have to have deputies to cover those deputies if they go on vacation or call in sick. So I told him, I said, okay, let me talk to the sheriff and see how we can work that out. Needless to say, none of that happened. And as the alderman made the statement before, that's not even the responsibility of the sheriff department. It was just something that we took on. And we have no problem with helping the city. We help the city in the downtown details, parking details. We do everything that we ask. When the city asks us to work, we work. We have no problem with that. All we're asking is that the city understand that we don't want to put anybody in jeopardy, anybody's life in jeopardy. When you're working with the hospital unit over in the CJC, well, we don't even have it, but when the CJC make these calls, they put us in harm's way. And a lot of times, we had a guy that they called out, and since I've been the colonel, as a matter of fact, myself and the major went out on a call. Why? Because we didn't have the deputies to cover it. So we had to go out and do it. And they had a guy they called out for a toe injury, you know. And so we had to take him out. And when we get there, the hospitals ask him, why did y'all bring him? Well, we can't deny him medical treatment. So these are the things that we are dealing with. So that's why we had that unit. The unit covered everything. We didn't have any deaths when we had the jail unit. We didn't have any incidents when we had the jail unit. And we was just trying to tell them how important the jail unit is. You can't operate without a unit to cover that particular situation.
We're going to go over to the finance director, and then we'll go into questions for the committee. And again, just state your first and last name for the record.
Good morning. I'm Tashana Sias, the Director of Fiscal Operations for the Sheriff's Department. Okay, so I presented today a presentation just to give you more of a visual because we did previously speak about our budgetary controls, and it has been questions raised about currently having the Sheriff's Department in a deficit. I want to kind of go over some historical data. As you all can see, the first slide talks about our budgetary control that goes all the way back to fiscal year 2022 current. We have what we call a general fund, which is the city allocated funds, as well as our Sheriff's Department has revenue funds that we have through bank accounts. A lot of our finances were utilized, or expenses were taken out and paid for through our revenue-driven checking accounts. So as you can see on our budgetary control, we had year over year a lot of unused funds. We were allocated millions of dollars and left millions of dollars on the table not utilizing those funds. These were, again, city allocated funds that were used specifically or were to be used specifically for expenses or the operations for the sheriff's department, and they were left unused. Can we go to the next slide? To the big question at hand, everyone wants to talk about is the deficit. As I stated before from the previous slide, one of the reasons that you are seeing a deficit is because of the use of department revenue versus the allocated city funds. As I stated before, we are given, as well as every other office and department, allocated funds every year to utilize to function and operate within our office. Those funds were not being utilized, and what you're seeing now is someone such as myself in this role that is actually utilizing those funds to pay our obligations, to utilize our expenses in the correct way, and to actually show transparency on what we are spending money on. Unpredicted payouts for personnel changes. We all have been aware that we had previous administration changes, and as the sheriff indicated, we had $437,000 off the bat, in January 3rd for payouts for sick time, compensation time, as well as vacation time. On the next slide, you would actually see that breakdown by item of each individual and what they were paid out. Some individuals at $30,000 for compensatory time, and that's not actually accurate of what can be produced. Deputy pay increases. Sheriff Montgomery ran on the fact of also being a former sheriff deputy himself of the low wages, not even close to anyone meeting within the pay scale. So what he did was decided that he was going to make sure with the funds being available to bring up 71 deputies that are on the forefront, carrying the guns, providing safety for all of the city of St. Louis and the jails. 42K. That averages about $43 to $73 per paycheck for a deputy. That's really not a dramatic increase or decrease to our deficit. Approximately, it would have averaged us close to maybe $200,000 annually. But again, we already assumed a budget that was already taken, so we wouldn't be able to tell you that annually. But I can tell you for a fact that it only increased our salary budget by approximately $8,000 per pay period. Contractual agreements. We assumed a lot of contractual agreements that were outdated and expired. I can tell you alone, our copy agreement had, our copy agreement had 8 invoices coming in a month for copy machines that are no longer existing in the sheriff's department or have expired or cannot even be troubleshot. I have been working diligently for the past 3 months with all of our existing vendors, trying to get all of the contracts that we have, as well as assuming other new contracts to make things more cost efficient and effective for our office. And last but not least, something that can attribute to the deficit is department needs and wants. Not to say that everything that we need has been paid for, because we are in desperate need of computer technology. But we can also say that we had some departmental wants. Some of our departmental wants, I can say that we could have done a little bit differently and planned that a little bit differently. However, we were wanting to make sure we came in feet on the ground and everything that we needed to get right then and there. As I stated before, on the third slide, you will see a little bit more about the unpredicted payouts for the personnel changes. Excuse me. Can you change the next slide, please? Thank you. Oh, no, yes. So as I was stating before, you can see the breakdown that it was $429,926 that initially came out of our budget on January 3rd, 2025. That is a big hit coming from a salary budget that has been proposed to satisfy 170 individuals over a 12-month period, 26 pay periods. That is going to definitely put some detriment to our budget, as well as the fact that we have to maneuver different ways to take other funds from other resources, such as other accounts that we have, to try to make sure that our budget does not go into an extreme deficit. Next slide, please. Okay. So for fiscal year 2026, we received a proposed budget back on April 3rd. It was an increase of about $400,000 in salaries. As we were indicating to you all before, we have a desperate need to make sure that we have ensured our safety of our employees as well as the community and everybody that we work with. And with that being said, we have to make sure that we have the amount of personnel. We have to also take into account that we have annual increases. We do performance evaluations, things of that sort, and $400,000 in that budget seemed a little bit low. We were overall given a little bit under what we were previously given over year. As you can see on that first slide, you can see year over year how the budget changed. And I can completely understand, as I stated before, there were a lot of funds, millions of dollars that were not utilized year over year. I wouldn't give an organization any additional funds if they're not using them either. But we can clearly show just coming in after 6 months, all of the expenses that are being paid, all of the contractual agreements that we have, that we are utilizing the funds, utilizing them in the correct way. But however, being that the funds that we have, they are not enough to make sure that we fulfill our duties here at the Sheriff's Department. If you have any questions, let me know. That's pretty much my presentation, but I'm open for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm going to start in order of seniority, but I do have 2 things to say. One, I think when this board heard about, I know the sheriff was in front of us a few weeks ago, and we had asked about the hospital unit. And I'm sure maybe Devotee will get into that. Alderman Devotee, who brought that up and asked statutorily, is that part of the sheriff's department? Clearly it's been going on for a while, going all the way back to Murphy. So at some point, maybe there's a need to continue to have a conversation with this board, E&A, and other departments to figure out what that looks like. Because it is critical that that continues to happen. And I think when we received that letter from your department that you guys are going to instantly stop in June, I think that became very problematic for many folks on this committee. I do appreciate the sheriff being willing to conversate with myself and Alderwoman Sanier to try to come up with a agreement and learning to be more work collaboratively and to have conversations. Because one thing about it, this committee didn't know that apparently that you all had budget issues when it came to the jail. So one of the questions I have for you, how much does it cost to run, and when I say issues, I mean with the transport of inmates, how much does that annually have been costing you all in the past to transport inmates from your facility to any emergency care hospital?
I'm actually going to have Chief Deputy Sykes come up because he has been working with the hospital unit and that down and look at the transports, the amount of time and all that good stuff.
Again, for the record, just state your first and last name, or?
Let's adjust that. There we go. Tyshawn Sykes, Chief Deputy. Alderman, to answer your question, I can't give you a definite number on how much it costs for us to transport the inmates because that's internal. I deal mainly with the operations portions and the actual deputies. But what I can tell you is taking the manpower from different units as far as courts, transportation, outside services, security to fill the manpower in hospital has been a struggle. Just to give you guys an example of what's going on right now, we're averaging, just looking back over our records, we're averaging about 7 details a week that we're taking out. That's not including if the inmates are staying there for a month or 2 months. Just this past month in May, we've set on we set on 8 different inmates that we set on for 2 weeks at minimum. So it's been a consistent problem. Right now with hospital unit, we're manning at 18 individuals in the hospital unit, and we're still having deputies leave. So those numbers continuously change. So right now, sitting at 18 people. If we have 7 details, then we need 14 deputies per shift. The reason being is because it is completely unsafe for us to have our deputies have one deputy sitting on one inmate at a time. It causes safety issues, it's concerns as far as our department, the citizens, the nurses, and the inmate. Because our deputies are in charge of the inmate safety, Our deputies are also in charge of nurses' safety when they are actually in a room with our inmate at the time. So recently, unfortunately, we were forced to do one deputy per inmate. However, we do make adjustments to pull our deputies from courts or pull our deputies from security in order to fill those missing slots so that our deputies are safe, so that the inmate is safe, so that the nurses are safe. However, it's becoming a struggle because our courts are being short, security is short, and yet we still have shortages in the hospital, even pulling those deputies to assist for those times. We have deputies working doubles. We have deputies working longer than doubles, 18, 19-hour shifts they're willing to. And we give them the compensatory time for it. However, it's not helping our department. So with an average of 7 details a week, a minimum of 14 deputies that's needed to sit on those individuals. We're not including holidays. We're not including rec days. We're not including individuals that may call out because they're sick. So again, I want to stress the struggle that we are currently at with needing our manpower at this time.
Gotcha. Okay. At some point, clearly y'all used to run a hospital unit. So there are some numbers somewhere maybe from the previous budget that it cost you all to run this. I think that's important to, at some point throughout the year, provide to this committee. I think, and I've already talked with the sheriff about it, I think, just demanding and saying that you all was not going to do this is not the best way to try to find partnership and collaborate with a board that wants to see the sheriff office be successful and also want to make sure that our inmates that are in the CJC, and I don't want to call them inmates, our neighbors that are in the CJC are getting the proper care, not just through the CJC contract, but if they need to go to a hospital. So those numbers in the future will be helpful. And my last thing is, I know we keep saying, or we're not saying it, you guys keep saying unpredicted payouts. It was probably very predicted that you all was going to let people go. So I don't know if those payouts was necessarily unpredicted, understanding that, every administration do have the ability to bring people in and make changes within the department. But I would say as those was happening, I think those came down to about $400,000 that cost the city to let go folks, and then hiring new people. I know you cut your top brass staff so you can hire more deputies. There's not one, which is appreciative because everybody in city government needs to get paid more. And no matter if you're in forestry, water department, wherever, they all are underpaid. So making that decision to pay the sheriffs a little bit more where you was able to be creative, I get it. But it also probably would have been smart maybe to talk with Paul Payne and figure out if we're going to cut all these people, what is that going to do to the budget, understanding that we were kind of, as you was coming in, you'd be coming to the end of the budget and now has your department in red compared to the rest of the city departments that are not in red.
And I like to note, I can't echo enough that, again, we've reached out to the city of St. Louis before I even walked in the office on January 1st. We tried to meet with Paul Payne. We reached out to the mayor's office. Even after taking over office, we sat down, we met with the public safety director regarding the CJC. We have not been given an opportunity to have a sit-down meeting. And that's what prompted us to send that letter, because we can't continue to work in the dark. The deputy safety is at risk, and also the detainee's safety at risk. So what I did was I did a little research, and I looked at the contract, the medical contract with CJC, with, I believe, is Corizon, the medical provider. And inside, I think it's section 1.5 of that contract states that the city of St. Louis is responsible for the overseeing of those detainees in the hospital. Again, we don't have a problem with that, but our core duties is to protect the 22nd Circuit, eviction process, make sure detainees are transported to and from court, and security of the courts. That's our main core, that's our core duties per the state statute. So we want to do everything we could to help the city of St. Louis. We want to do everything we could. I've been very voiceful about assisting the CJC with whatever they need assistance with as well. And we talked about that with the previous administration. Again, I can't stress enough, we reached out to the mayor's office. When we look at the city government chart, you have the mayor's office on the top, you have the public safety office below her, and then you have correction below the public safety director. So we're looking at more from a policy aspect than a political aspect. I always say my motto is we want to put people over politics. And when it comes to that's why we were prompted to speak with the mayor's office or speak with the public safety director. But I like to know that all of us here are new. Just like, and I don't want to go into details about any other elected official or any other mishaps that they may have had that cost lives or anything like that. I don't want to do that. But I do want to take note that we take responsibility for our actions. We're learning as we grow into this position. Each and every one of my administrators are learning as we go into this administration. We walked into a room with nothing. No documentations, nothing. So we're building this department from the ground up. We had to track down contracts and know what's supposed to be paid out and how it was being paid out. We had to search for different hidden bank accounts inside the office because we was left with nothing. And if we had a fair chance, a fair transition, I'm pretty sure that this would not have happened. But moving forward, I cannot reiterate enough that we all care about the safety and security of not only the deputies, but those detainees. And just like the storm, just like the snowstorm or the tornado, if there's a problem within our city when it comes to our residents, the Sheriff Montgomery is coming. I'm coming. So if there is a problem, even though that we did send a letter out, and if a detainee, and we continue to transport those detainees, if a call goes out to the sheriff, I'm going to answer. That's all I have.
Gotcha. I'm gonna go to committee members. I will say I am glad that you retracted that letter and will continue to do the transport of detainees. And I want you to also, as I told you, or as we had a conversation, there's multiple ways to try to figure things out. This Board of Aldermen is a legislative branch. So outside of the executive branch, we are the legislative body that also can be helpful and try to work with other cities and departments. So hopefully in the future, as you're in your department, you continue to try to collaborate and work with the Board of Aldermen, because we want to make sure, regardless if it's a sheriff department or any department, is successful. And if we do not know what the issues are, we cannot be a help. As my mom said, closed mouth does not get fed. So I appreciate the conversation we was able to have to get this back on track and hopefully move forward from this.
And I'd like to note that, again, I don't want to leave this committee hearing knowing that we still have not had a meeting. We still don't have a memorandum of understanding in place. So I'm depending on the individuals of the board. Maybe if you can prompt that meeting with the mayor's office or the public safety director to make that commitment to say, hey, we need to sit down with the sheriff's office. We need to see how we can work together, because right now it's just not working. I've been locked out of CJ January 1st of 2025. Since I took over office, we weren't able to get in the doors. The simple locking mechanisms, we were locked out. Now, despite whatever the political outcome is, we still have to work together here, and I'm committed to doing so.
Okay, one
Mr.
moment.
Chairman, can I just ask a question for clarification?
Yes, I don't know if YouTube is up right now, so. It is working at the moment.
I think we're taking a pause for technical issues.
It's the first time during budget, YouTube went down again. I don't know if it's you, Sheriff, or the news media that all this shut down YouTube. Yeah. Okay, we back up? All right, we're good to go. So I'm gonna go in order of seniority, but one of my colleagues just wanted to clarify so that we are clear to the public that you are retracting the letter you sent to the board and to the mayor of that you will stop transporting detainees. I think the day is June something, that you are retracting that and will continue to provide that service from the sheriff's office.
Yes, with the agreement that we have a memorandum of understanding with the corrections and also the city of St.
So you haven't retracted the letter?
No, it is retracted.
You
but
retracted it
Yeah,
today?
it's retracted today. It's effective immediately, but we still need to have that memorandum of understanding. We can't continue to work in a door. Again, our core duties is to the courts. So in order for us to continue this, we need to know how you guys expect us to do it. What does this look like? What's the communications between?
Right, but retraction and retraction with an agreement are two different things. So I'm just trying to get clarification if you are retracting the letter as is and you are still seeking a memorandum of understanding
Yes.
from the city, but those are two different things.
So I'm retracting, requesting a memorandum of understanding. That's the only way that we're going to be able to work, is that memorandum of understanding.
Right,
because
but you're not, but
it's-
retraction of the letter is not contingent on a memorandum of understanding. That's what I want to clarify.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll wait for my turn.
You are fine, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Sanye?
I'll start by thanking you for coming before the committee again. I appreciate yourself and the call that myself and Chairman Aldridge were able to have with some of your staff members. For me, I try really hard to make sure that we're not only having these conversations with the cameras rolling. We are leaders and we have a lot of work to do. And so I think it's very important that our communication is open and transparent. And speaking for myself, I was unaware of any of the issues that you were having with your hospital unit prior to us getting a public letter. And I do need to say on the record that I think that is ridiculous, given that the Public Safety Committee, like we've had committees where we talked about the administration and talked about the detainees that have passed away in the CJC. We were very integral in actually sending out a letter saying, there's one death is one death too many. That led to Dr. Mahdi, the previous health director, coming in and getting involved and talking about those medical contracts. So I do feel like while you've been in office, there's been a lot of public demonstration that at least the Board of Aldermen, and specifically the Public Safety Committee and the Budget Committee, is very interested in doing whatever we have to do to detainees. But as city leaders, when we hit a point where we're having our conversations, all of the press are getting the same information that I'm getting at the same time as the public and the constituents, we have already messed up and errors have been made. And I do put that on you because you sent that letter and you let that communication. That's the first time that we had it. If you were having issues with a hospital unit and is really troubling your deputies, when you gave your first budget presentation, that was a time. That wasn't mentioned anywhere in your presentation the first time.
We did mention it.
I don't remember you mentioning a desire for a memorandum of understanding. The level of urgency to the point where, hey, I'm about to abruptly stop a service that could lead to people dying. I did not leave your presentation with that sense. I did not get that sense until you sent that letter. And that would have been the platform and the time to let us know, or even beforehand. My phone is open, my email is open. Hey, I'm dealing with this. You mentioned communication where you haven't been able to get a response. I'm going to ask some specific questions about that, but you can always CC us on emails. You can always forward us to emails, and not just when it blows up to the point where you're about to stop the service, but along the way when you're trying to get in the door and get the meetings and get the conversations. I can't speak for the administration. I can't speak for Paul Payne, but I know they are very responsive to me every time I've reached out and said something, and I totally would have stood in the gap and followed up on the emails and said, hey, did you know that the sheriff was trying to reach out and talk to you about this? Do you know when you might be able to get that meeting scheduled? I would have totally done what we needed to do as a city to make sure we're in those rooms having the conversations. But I do think where we're at now, having this conversation this way, it's just not good for any of us involved, because as I expressed on the phone to my constituents, their first antennas and their first ears is, oh, more people are about to die. And I never want them to be sitting with those sentiments. And I don't want them to feel as if their leaders are not doing our job of communicating with each other and talking to each other. And I can totally see why they would walk away from that letter that, again, I didn't get a chance to talk to them about. I really wasn't aware of what the depth of the issue is to answer questions. I'm just starting to get questions from press. Can you answer this? Can you respond to this? And we all just got the letter at the same time. But with all that being said, I think it is very commendable for you to come back in front of us, for you to be open to the conversation, for us to have the conversations we had over the weekend. And you talked a little bit about the payouts. Can you just explain a little bit more about who that was initiated by and what those payouts were specifically for? I know I saw something that was saying that some of it was for comp time. I know you mentioned the presentation payouts for education. Can you just explain a little bit more?
So yeah, I'll have my director of physical operations to do that as well. But first, I just want to clarify again, we're all, well, at least I'm new to this. I was elected 6 months ago. So it's certain chains of commands that I'm getting used to doing. We all make mistakes, and we can learn from mistakes as we go. So now that I know that it's an open communication with the Board of Aldermen about any concerns dealing with CJC, instead of just the public safety director or just the mayor, moving forward, we will do that. So that's the reason that I wasn't able to reach out to you guys, because I didn't think that it was appropriate. But now that I know that this is the appropriate way that we will communicate, then that's the route that I will go. But it's always and will always be people over politics when it comes to dealing with this CJC. And I think that you're right, with a lot of the media coverage surrounding the relationship between CJC and the sheriff's office, we know we can pretty much see through the smoky area there of what's going on. There is a problem there. I walked into a war between a political war, and not only that, a brewing war between the sheriff's office and CJC. And I've been singing the same song since taking over office on January 1st, is I just want to work together. Whatever I can do to work with, and any individual that have spoken with me about our plans in the sheriff's office, they will tell you that the sheriff really wants to work together. He wants to see how we can make this thing better. I just want to clarify here that we are fully staffed, and we are trying to keep deputies in the courtroom. That's our core duty. I can't stress this enough. What we want to focus on, whenever you start off something new, an executive coming to over an agency, he looks at the policy and procedure. He looks at ways that he can revise them. He also looks at different ways that they can work differently together. And that's the only thing you guys see in here now. Now, I just want to address the elephant, because I think it's definitely necessary to address this. I don't get the same responses or the same respect like senior alder individuals or individuals in office. They look at me as another, I'm gonna just be honest, another black guy that just happened to take up an office. So when I make those calls and say, hey, let's sit down and meet, I get the cold shoulder. And that's a problem, and it caused more problems, like me having to send out a letter to say, hey, if we can't get this situation taken care of, then this is going to be the results. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring up Director Syed.
Hi. To answer your question.
Hello.
How you doing? To answer your question about the payouts, they were actually initiated by the previous administration. When I came in, I happened to notice on the first pay period that there were element corrections, which are forms that are submitted to the payroll division over here at City Hall, that were submitted by the previous payroll supervisor and signed off and authorized by the former sheriff. So those were already authorized prior to us coming in.
And are you saying that you found out about that after you guys already began the senior cuts?
We actually found out about that the week of that pay period. So that would have been we started on the 1st, and that pay period, that was the 3rd. So that was just 2 days. That pay period actually started on the December 28th, but we weren't in office then. So those were already executed. It was direct deposited and everything. I didn't even have the opportunity to make sure that everybody that was no longer employed were deactivated in the system or anything like that.
So at that time, when you come in, you find out that these things were done. Is it the budget director that tells you about?
No, it was a payroll activity report that we received during pay period weeks. We received those on Monday afternoons and Tuesday afternoons, and upon reviewing that, you would see the payout amounts.
Okay, and so you have that payroll report, and you are all in the process of trying to restructure your staff so that your deputies are paid. But you were aware that those payouts had happened when you were in the process of starting to restructure the department?
No, not aware of those payouts at that time. I would say it would probably take a little bit over a week, because we didn't even have internet connection, because we had to get in Regis to make sure the VPN and all the security. So it took us almost to the second week of us being in the office to be able to access that information. So the week of the pay period that they received that, it was, like I said, it was January 3rd.
And when did if that was January 3rd, when did you all cut the senior positions officially from your budget?
The senior positions, you mean their positions?
Right.
They were notified.
And that was initiated by you all, or was that, I guess I'm trying to understand, you have senior deputies that you're trying to cut some of those positions so you can pay your lower deputies more.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you're saying there was payouts initiated. So the payouts were not initiated by this administration. They were initiated by the previous administration, but you guys did have a role in cutting some of the senior, like, I'm trying to understand that overlap between that, because you guys did have a role in cutting some of the senior deputies, correct?
What happened was our senior deputies took a pay cut. Each and every one of us, including myself, took a pay cut of a certain percentage to pay those deputies that up to $42,000 a year starting. The previous payouts were made by the previous administration, including the ones that are no longer with us. So they are the ones who paid themselves out before leaving the office. We didn't get notice until it was pay period time.
So was there a thought of maybe delaying raising the pay for all of the deputies until the new fiscal year, since those payouts had to happen?
No, so what we did was we got together before taking over office. We looked at the numbers, through sunshine requests. So we looked at how much would it be to cut, how much do we need to cut out of the top administration to fill in the gaps to pay these individuals up to $42,000 starting when I took over office on January 1st. By raising this salary, we increased the deputies at the sheriff's office, we increased morale, and we retained deputies. So we didn't have to worry about.
But that's also in part responsible for the deficit, right? So I'm saying, was there any thought of delaying those raises until the new fiscal year, since you had to do the payout, since they were already authorized and you had to do that? Was there ever any thought of, okay, yes, we want to raise the pay of our deputies, but maybe we'll do that in the next fiscal year to avoid having a deficit?
We were not aware of the amount of the payouts until about, if I'm not mistaken, was it 2 weeks or a week into office?
And at that time, you had already raised the rates for the lower deputies?
Yes.
Okay. And then my other question, I think this one's for you too, Sheriff. You said that you had conversation with the administration. They were open to the idea of giving you all 20 deputies in both the Jones administration and Director Coyle. I was just curious about the timeline of when they said, yes, we're okay with giving you these 20 additional deputies.
So we met with the public safety director, and also my colonel was there with me. He can explain more on those meeting minutes as well.
Thank you. Well, actually, we talked to Nancy Cross first. She was the one that was in agreement with bringing back the jail unit. Then we set up the meeting with Coyle, and he was also in agreement. But he also—
When was this?
Right before we took office.
So like December of 24?
No, it was, right, because you wasn't in office yet. About December 24. Right. And so once he agreed, he also promised us that he was setting up a meeting with the Justice Center, that we need to sit down and talk. None of this happened. As a matter of fact, Deputy Steve Chalmers, who was with us at the time, told us this is all a lie. He's not going to do it. And sure enough, it never happened. So it was all just a story. You know, it never happened. We never got the deputies. We kept doing the transport. As the alderman said, it's not even our responsibility, but we were doing it anyway. And we were doing it, but we were neglecting the courts again. So now it was beginning to cause a problem in our priority, our initial job. It's starting to cause some problem, as it is going to do now. If we start doing it, it's going. I understand the sheriff withdrew the letter. I understood that. But as the alderman explained, that's not our core duty. But we will help out. We will do what we have to do. The problem is we even had an agreement with the Justice Center that we would do one-on-one, one correctional officer with a sheriff deputy. They agreed.
You had a verbal agreement? You had
a verbal, right, because nothing is never in writing. If you ask for it, they won't give it to you. You know?
We actually did send a memorandum of understanding, and they never signed off on it as well. So we made that agreement. In fact, when I first took over office, I met with Jennifer Abdullah, who was the commissioner over CJC at the time, and we had a great meeting. We had a great start. We had a plan moving forward, and it was like she was gone within a week or so. So then I went back over to try to meet with the acting commissioner, and it didn't go as well.
Okay, so when did you all start your budget conversations with the budget director and E&A for this year's budget? What is that timeline?
Let me have Blake come up here, and he can explain the conversations that he prompted with them.
And to add to that, I'm assuming the budget, when you were meeting with Paul Payne, was probably the previous administration that coming into that budget, but maybe Blake can explain.
I mean, but we're approving budgets now. So if you came in January, I'm assuming there was some conversation between you and director. There should have been. That's what I'm asking.
Okay, so there were conversations with our office with Paul Payne, and Blake can explain more about how those conversations went.
And when did they start is my first question.
Explain that to you.
Yeah, Blake Lawrence, Chief Counsel. We met with Paul Payne a couple times in December or after we were elected, and then I sent an email to him in December laying out point by point exactly what our plan was, point by point. That's essentially what we did. It talked about the fact that we planned on hiring 26 new employees to fully staff the department in the first month, which we did. It talked about, it basically went through it point by point.
And in that email, did you mention a jail unit? Did you mention a desire to have deputies for a jail unit? Was this a part of the conversations?
At that time, it wasn't, because we didn't see that problem. The problem kind of caught us unexpectedly when we tried to staff every courtroom as promised to the 22nd Circuit. So that's when we started to see the problem. Hey, we put a deputy in every courtroom, but hospital unit is short. Because it's not a separate budget line, so we don't have that, it doesn't really exist up under the sheriff office in the way it operates.
So I guess my question is, between January and now, have you ever had a conversation with Director Payne about, hey, as we're having budget conversations, we have a hospital unit, we needed this, you called it a hospital unit or a jail unit, whichever one, and we need deputies. That's what I'm asking. Have you gone to, you mentioned the mayor's office, but I'm just curious specifically with the actual budget director, has there been specific communication with him saying, we really need this unit and we need sheriffs for it?
There was not a specific meeting about the unit specifically, but it was about the extra deputies for that unit, if that makes sense.
Okay. And when you sent over that MOU, it was just never signed and you never got a response?
We never got a response.
Okay.
It was requested by the public safety director. He said that the previous administration had never signed the MOU. And I said, well, let's get an MOU together. We can have one signed. They signed an MOU, we revised it, sent it back, and we haven't heard.
And when did you send the MOU?
I don't have the exact date on when I sent it, but I can pull it from my office once I get back.
Okay, and ideally, how many deputies do you think that you do need for that hospital unit? I think Alderman Aldridge was asking that earlier.
We need at least 20 deputies. That would probably cost approximately about $800,000 a year at $40,000 starting with each deputy.
And that's the minimum that you think you can start with at all?
Medium term.
Yeah, for medium term. Anything helps. Whatever helps, actually. We just really need extra help in order to continue the services. We want to do this. We want to help out CJC, but we just don't have the means.
Yeah. Well, anything that I can do, I look forward to us continuing conversation. Anything I can do, including if you ever want to forward me an email, CC me, BCC me, call me, anything. It's a lot of high concern. I don't want to see anyone in the CJC die. I want to see all of them get the quality treatment that they should have. I want your office to be able to operate effectively. I understand that you're new. There's a lot of changes that you want to make. And so I definitely think that there's a way that we can work together to make these changes, but make them in a way that is a transition and not just a jump and a leap right away, because it is going to take time to change it. There are going to have to be budget conversations. I'm sure the first function right now is going to be focusing on clearing up your deficit and making sure that's clear in the budget, especially given where City of St. Louis finances are and just the political climate we're in. But totally, my door is open. I think we should be having proactive conversations. I'm glad to know that there once was a jail unit, and that to have an idea of what you think it looks like for that to be properly staffed, and totally open to continuing to having those conversations in my door and my phone and my email and everything are always open to you to help in any way, both on and off the record, so that we can have a city that really has, an effective criminal justice system and that actually has public safety within it.
Absolutely.
Alderman Browning?
Thank you. I'm going to pass if you could come back to me.
Awesome. Also, to the people that are watching, I know we should be wrapping this up soon. This is not to cut any time from the committee, but knowing that we're going to have public testimony right after this, so please continue to stick around. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Thank you, Chairman, and I just want to thank my colleague from the 7th for setting the groundwork here for it. You also have my number, and I think there is an important thing, whether it's to try and resolve things as best we can without, a storm, which is kind of what we're in right now. It's so. With that, I'm happy to talk. We've all been on public safety for a couple years now. Even with our past administration, we want a good relationship, a partnership. And however, I think it's important to follow the law. And I think that's where some of our concerns are, that things are happening outside core duties potentially, not just with this, but with other things. So I have a few questions for you. I did notice during the storm response that on social media that your deputies have been out in the community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So yeah, the storm hit on a Friday, and the courts were just beginning to close. Some of our office staff left early. We got a call that the tornado had touched down in North St. Louis. A lot of deputies wanted to leave and check on family members before the courthouse, the court day ended. And I said, well, if this is truly a disaster, we all need to go together. We're all in this together. When one hurt, we all hurt. Let's gather out. Let's go out there. Let's get whatever we can get and help out. When we got there, we noticed that it was pretty bad. People were trapped in their homes. We had disabled individuals trapped in their homes. We found a couple of unresponsive individuals. We called for additional deputies, and deputies came from, even deputies from other shifts came out to help on their own time.
And were there deputies out there additionally beyond Friday?
Yes.
And were those deputies on volunteering, or were they assigned?
So those deputies worked as comp time. Yeah, actually, they did volunteer for comp time. They came in on their time off.
Do you have that on documentation on record that you can
Yes.
share with us?
I don't have it with me now. I didn't expect that question. But yeah, there was a storm. The state of emergency happened, and our deputies responded as one of the law enforcement agencies here in this city.
Now, just as I understand your core duties are within the jurisdiction of the court. So why we are grateful for your help responding to an emergency outside the courts would not be in your core duties. Is that correct?
No, it's not in our core duties. It's just like the jail is not in our core duties. It's just like the parking detail that we do for the office. It's not in our core duties. We do secondary. It's not in our core duties. But it's a lot of things that we have as far as our core duties, and it's duties that we can do outside of our duties. And I can authorize that as the executive of that office.
And does that fall under statute 57? Because as I understand it, anything that's really outside the core duties, outside of statute 57, is not within the bounds of the sheriff's office.
No, it's not within a balance. Well, a state of emergency, it's like a gray area when it comes to the city of St. Louis Sheriff's Office. I can say as an elected official who served the people elected us, and the people were in need. And we got out there not because we didn't think about the statute or political affiliation, how that would look. We knew that people were hurt. We knew that people were dying. We knew that people had died, and we knew that we had to do something about it. So it's the same if an active shooter come in this building, we're coming. It's the same if an active shooter goes to a school, we're coming.
Right. I will just say that I saw some posts at cleanup stations like outside the Urban League, and if we're just talking about in context of not having enough money to even get through the budget year, again, I would think that would be something that we should be mindful of especially if they are on comp time, that's one thing, but if we're paying, folks overtime, and I know this was a conversation with the last sheriff's administration, so I would just like to make sure that
But
we
no
have some clarity
overtime
on that.
paid while those deputies were out. Those deputies came out because of the goodness of their heart, and they came together for the community. And the community appreciated it because we're all elected here. We're all elected, just like delivering waters and
Well, no, deputies aren't elected. You're elected, I'm elected.
elected. The
But
deputies are.
but there's a difference between, well, we're all essentially salaried, and so we're not subject to comp time or overtime. We work what we work, but people who are paid not in that way, it is, it's legally different, the pay
So
structure.
you guys are not able to get comp time or overtime?
No.
Well, that's why we're in a deficit with the sheriff's office, because that
Well,
administration.
right, but as an executive, that's managing your staff, managing the people who report to you, managing that pay structure is also your responsibility.
Absolutely.
So there is an understanding it is a difference,
And again, I would like to reiterate that our deputies were not paid overtime to go out and help those individuals in the tornado disaster. Our deputies did it out the goodness of their heart. Our deputies are not scheduled to work on Saturdays and Sunday, but they did it because people were dying. People who elected me in that office, people who depend on the sheriff's office, were hurt over in North St. Louis. North St. Louis, where most of us have been. North St. Louis, where I know I have family members. I know most of my deputies got family. And when a community called, the sheriff is coming.
I understand, but I think my point is that we're in a budget hearing. We're in a budget hearing because your department does not have enough money you're in the red, and we're having conversations about what is within the bounds of the law legally as a department for the city that does not leave the city liable for other things, and that's why I'm asking these questions.
I appreciate that. Again, I just want to reiterate to you that the deputies were not paid overtime at that time. The deputies did this out the goodness of their hearts, and that's why they were out there. And the community really appreciated that. I understand that there is a deficit, but we have never had a tornado before. We don't have time to say, wait, let's look and see how much money we have to send out for tornado relief. That's not what our heart says. Our heart says someone is hurt, someone is in need, you get out, you go out and you.
I understand. It's just, we're here also to be hearts and budgets. I'm not saying it was the wrong thing. I'm just saying in the context of being able to understand and forecast your budget, comp time is also a cost, which you all recently found out. So not a right thing or a wrong thing, but if we're talking about managing a department and managing it and being fiscally responsible, these are all things that are part of that conversation.
So as a state of emergency, do you think it was not necessary to utilize comp time for those deputies to go out and rescue some of those individuals in the tornado?
I'm asking you if you authorized to pay people legally have the jurisdiction over. I don't think legally the sheriff's office does.
It's a lot of things that you guys are asking the sheriff's office to do. It's just like taking detainees to the hospital.
I'm asking you to follow the law. That's what I'm asking.
Absolutely.
So my second question for you is, I heard, did the sheriff's office, actually, I'm asking the questions here.
Okay, go ahead.
Did you hire lobbyists with discretional funds in the last fiscal year?
Yeah, we hired lobbyists.
How many lobbyists did you hire?
We hired 2 firms.
2 firms, and was that under what I heard was $13,000 under discretionary funds from? Was that the correct amount?
13 was that. Yes.
And are those contracts available for us? We haven't been able to find those contracts.
They're not here today, but we'll get those to you as well.
And are you planning on continuing the lobbying firm through this with the $2,000 in the professional services fund?
I'm sure the lobbyists will work with our department to figure out a way that we can continue to work together. And the reason that we have lobbyists, because we have to look for different grants and stuff like that. We look out in Jeff City that can kind of help the department out as well.
I have no other questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Alderman Devotie.
Sheriff, thank you for coming in today. I wanted to ask you about a couple of different subjects, but I want to start with your letter of May 27, 2025, addressed to the mayor. Before I ask my questions, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, because it's been attributed to me a number of times now that it is my belief that the handling of prisoner transport from the jail falls outside of of your office's core duties. And I want to make very clear, I did ask the question with respect to statutory authority, but I don't think that we are on the same page there. So I would appreciate it if your office stopped attributing that particular statement to me, because I don't believe that I said that. I merely asked a question with respect to the statutory underpinnings of your core duty. Fair enough?
That's fair enough, actually, and I'm glad that you asked that question because, like you are new on the Board of Aldermen, I am new as well. So we ask the same question when we look at policies that happen. And when you brought that question up, I had already asked that question. We had pulled a 2002 document from the City Council's office that stated that the City of St. Louis Correction is in charge of transporting those detainees to and from the hospital, and also to oversee those individuals at the hospital. So that's kind of a question that I have as well. Just like Alderwoman Velazquez stated, we want to try to stay within the law, and we want to operate according to our core duties. But it's like at one side of the mouth, you guys are saying, hey, do this outside of your duties, and then out the other side of your mouth, you're saying, do this, but stay within the law. So it's confusing me on what do you guys want from us? Are we working together here, or are we sticking to the core duties according to the state statute of the Sheriff's Office?
I think we're certainly working together, or at least that's the hope. Let me jump way ahead here, and I do have some very specific questions to ask. It sounds like there is a fair amount of frustration on your part that there is the impression or the perception that on one hand, the board is saying, we want you to do this, but on the other hand, we're not funding those mandates. Is that right?
Yes.
Would it help you, would it help the sheriff's office if during this particular session, the board took up specific legislation that set forth the duties and responsibilities of your office?
Yes.
Fair enough. The idea being is that if we did so, there wouldn't be any dispute next year or moving forward about what your duties and responsibilities are, because this board will have passed legislation along that line, correct?
Yes. And again, as long as that legislation does not interfere with the statute, because the sheriff's office sits, I think it's part of the confusion, and I'm noticing from a lot of city elected officials is individuals don't really truly understand the operation of the sheriff's office. So the breakdown of the sheriff's office, and this is at least my understanding, if I'm wrong, someone correct me, please. You have the sheriff's office, you have the mayor's office, and you have other county offices. Up under there, you have the public safety director. Up under the public safety director, you have correction. The sheriff's office is its own entity, if that makes sense.
Well, I think to your point, and I will guarantee you that any legislation that I file will be consistent with Chapter 57.
Absolutely.
I make that guarantee to you. Now, you would admit that Chapter 57 controls the operations of your office, correct?
Yes.
And I want to talk about Chapter 57, but before we do that, what frustrates me, and like you, and you know this, I'm a newly elected official, so I too am learning as we go. But since we sat down with your office on May 13, I've done a little bit more research. And you have mentioned this 2002 letter from the city councilor. I haven't been able to find any 02 letter, but I have found an 04 memorandum. And you would agree that, well, whether it's dated 02 or 04, you would agree that memorandum sets forth that at least as of that time, it was the duty, the responsibility of your office to handle prisoner transport from the CJC didn't exist at that time, but from corrections to hospitals, medical center, wherever the inmate needed medical treatment, correct?
Yes.
And that agreement came about following a letter issued by your predecessor, James Murphy, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, there was a reference to Sheriff Murphy earlier today. And that letter issued by the sheriff followed a very, very similar dispute back in the late 1990s about whose responsibility this was. Fair statement?
Yes.
And as part of Sheriff Murphy's promise to handle this particular job duty, It came about through budget discussions, much like we're here today, where the sheriff said, in exchange for 4 officers to handle that responsibility, in exchange for the purchase of additional vans, additional transport vehicles, my office will take on this responsibility. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. So in other words, the composition of the sheriff's office, your office, the deputies, baked into that is this 25, 26-year-old agreement by your predecessor that we're going to handle these duties. Fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. So that's how it came about. And to be clear, and I'm sure that you have found this since your office was here on May 13, but section 57.450 specifically directs, and now we're talking about state law, right? Mm-hmm. Specifically directs that all general laws relating to sheriffs of counties outside of the city of St. Louis also apply to the city of St. Louis sheriff, correct?
Yes.
Now, I understand that in this situation, our sheriff's office is different than most of the other 118 or 120 odd sheriff's departments across the state, right? I mean, you would admit that here in the city of St. Louis, we have an independent police department that is responsible for law enforcement, correct?
Yes.
In other words, your sheriff's department, unlike the majority of sheriff's departments in the state of Missouri, does not have any statutorily described law enforcement, correct?
Unless it's incidental to the duties of the sheriff's office.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Unless it's incidental to the duties of the sheriff.
Absolutely.
So we do not enforce the general criminal law unless it's incidental to the duty of the sheriff.
Absolutely. I appreciate that clarification. And when we talk about incidental to the duties and responsibilities of the sheriff's office, that gets us back to the core responsibilities that we've been all dancing around here, right?
Yes.
No dispute that core responsibilities include security at the courthouse. In other words, attached to circuit judges, associate judges, and commissioners over there.
Yes.
And by my last count, we had 30 sitting divisions. Does that sound about right to you? Between 30 and 36. Okay, fair enough. We've got a prescribed number, in other words.
Yes.
Okay. A core duty also includes the service of legal paper.
Yes.
Summons, writs of execution, the like, things like that, correct?
Correct.
Core duties would also include, well, issuing concealed carry permits, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then again, this idea of taking convicted offenders to reception and diagnostic centers as designated by the Department of Corrections, right?
Yes. And the city of St. Louis is over corrections.
Correct. Those are the 4 core duties. Agreed?
No.
Then straighten me
So
out.
right now you're mixing chapter 57 with the other chapters according to the sheriff. Chapter 57 is specific. It's to the city of St. Louis Sheriff's Office. The city of St. Louis is over the Department of Correction, meaning they're over the medical, the overseeing, the feeding, the medical care, all of that is within, that falls up under the Department of Correction. Now, I did propose, and I ran on a campaign where I said if the city of St. Louis is not able to handle CJC, the sheriff's office will take it over if they would like, or we can assist that if they would like. And when we say assist, that's where it came that 1-to-1. And I even proposed where if we get 10 deputies and 10 correction officers, we can create a jail unit.
My point here is that you would agree with me that under applicable law, it is the responsibility of your department to handle these prisoner transports.
No, I don't agree.
You don't agree with that?
No. That's not inside of you guys. That's according to the City of St. Louis Department of Corrections, it's your sole responsibility. And also, I don't have with me, but I also have the contract from Corizon that we looked over several times that specifically states this.
Okay. So let's talk historically then. We know at least as of 2004 that there were at least 4 deputies budgeted by the city of St. Louis within your department for the person.
I can't speak on historically, but my colonel of operation here, he can definitely speak on that because he was right within that. So he can explain a little more.
And that's what I want to nail down, because I did ask these questions back on the 13th, and no one from your office was able.
And I apologize that they were not able to answer that. Unfortunately, I had to leave early. I apologize that they were not able to answer that. Unfortunately, I had to leave early, but we're here now to make sure that we all have a better understanding.
I understand that, and I appreciate that, and there is no need to apologize. Truly, truly, truly. Now, having said that, as of today, I know historically there was at least 4 deputies put into the sheriff department's budget for the purpose of transport, historically. As of today, how many deputies are how many deputies are on the hospital detail, the jail detail?
Well, first, Alderman, if you took what I was saying out of content, I want to apologize. I wasn't saying that you were saying you mentioned it. So we were on the same page.
No need to apologize, but thank you.
Secondly, we always had the hospital unit. We have the jail unit is the unit that was disbanded under Murphy. Murphy disbanded that unit. Why? I don't know. I couldn't tell you why.
When was that disbanded?
Right before Best took office. It was disbanded somewhere around in that.
So historically, you're telling us that Murphy disbanded the hospital?
No, the jail unit.
The jail
unit. You have a
unit.
hospital unit, and then you have a jail unit. The jail unit basically stayed within the jail and handled all the necessities and the needs of the jail.
I want to make sure that we're using the same terminology.
Yes, sir.
What is the name of the unit that moves prisoners, detainees, from the CJC, from corrections to hospital, medical, whatever?
Right now, we use whatever unit possible at that time. But we have a hospital unit because at one point we had what you call a hospital ward. So we had a ward set up at St. Luke's Hospital, St. Paul, South Point Hospital, and so we had different hospitals that we had wards set up at. We no longer have them as well. So now what we do is when we have an issue at the jail, if the hospital unit is not already sitting on a detainee, we will use them. And if they already have, as of now, we will send one of the court deputies.
How many positions today are dedicated to the quote hospital unit?
And I notice you keep saying 4, right? So they will have 4 on each shift. So if you have 3 shifts, you add that up. So, right. So when you add that up, then you have to keep in mind you have swing shifts. Just in case someone calls off, vacation, things of that nature. Because you can't take from the courts, which is what Vernon Best was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because without a doubt, that's in state statute. Okay, so we've got 18 deputies that are scheduled at any given time no.
Not now, because if you notice, we don't have the amount of deputies we had during the time of Murphy. During the time of Murphy, we had over 200 deputies. We don't have that now. We don't even have that.
So help me understand.
Yes.
Today, how many officers how many deputies, are assigned for this hospital detail?
The hospital detail.
So we have 18 total deputies for the hospital detail. Oh, go ahead.
State your name for the record, first and last, please.
Good morning. My name is Major Stokes. I'm the commander of operations. The answer to that question, right now we have 18 deputies, which is assigned to the hospital unit. What you guys don't understand is the hospital unit has 3 shifts. At any given time, we have deputies who are already sitting on prisoners at the hospital. We would like to have 2 deputies per detainee, but that don't happen. On any given night, we can have 4 call-outs from CJC to transport detainees to the hospital. At which time, if we only have 4 deputies working at night, they're all stretched. The way it happens is CJC call us and they say we have an inmate that needs to go to the hospital. We may already have 2 or 3 deputies sitting on detainees. CJC will contact EMS. EMS would transport that detainee to whatever hospital. She contacts us. If all our deputies are already sitting on prisoners, we scramble to try to find a deputy. Any deputy, we're calling deputies in to come and sit.
I understand that there, of course, I'm sitting here as a member of this budget committee, and what I'm trying to nail down, and I'm probably doing a very poor job, and again, I'm looking at the sheriff's letter of May 27. Is the hospital unit those deputies that transport and supervise hospital detainees?
So I think the confusion is this. There's the transportation unit that transport detainees to and from court.
So yes or no?
I'm going to explain to you the different units, because it seems like it's kind of confusing.
The chair is going to get mad at me if I keep going on here, so I'm trying to cut to the chase.
Okay.
What I'm interested in, well, let me ask you this. You mentioned in your opening remarks that you had agreed to temporarily continue to provide transport and supervision of hospitalized detainees.
We're going to transport them.
I know you are, but again, what prompted my questions is the threat in the May 27 letter that as of June 9, I ain't doing this anymore. I mean, that's what caught my attention.
Right.
I mean, that's...
Absolutely.
You understand that's why I'm asking my questions, yes. Right? Okay. What I'm trying to figure out is during your opening remarks, you said, temporarily at least, we're going to do this. I have heard the chair make mention that there has been some discussions, which I wasn't a part of, that you have backed off of this letter, that you have withdrawn it. What I'm trying to figure out for the purposes of our budget that we're going to discuss here after you leave is, have you withdrawn this letter in its totality?
I think I made it very clear that letter is withdrawn. It's null, it's void, it does not exist anymore, it's done.
Okay. So in other words, one of the things we don't need to discuss is the transfer of funding for personnel to transport and supervise hospital detainees, because you acknowledge that you will continue to do that moving forward. Your office will continue to do that.
If we are able to do it while securing the courts, then we're going to do it. But one thing the sheriff is not going to do is derelict his duties of the court, of the 22nd Circuit. So right now, the reason that we come before you guys, even talking about the hospital unit, it's not for political, it's for the people. We just don't have the manpower to do it. We will do anything that we could, but it's going to continue to go into a deficit because we're going to go into 12-hour shifts. We're going to pay those individuals overtime to continue this task. But we want to make sure you guys know on record that this costs a lot in overtime or in commissary time when it comes to us doing this.
From a budgetary perspective, it would help us tremendously if you could come to us and say, we use the equivalent of 4, 10, whatever it is to handle this particular unit.
We can't go into specifics of that because what we do every day, or even as far as operations is, we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul, as my grandmother would say. So we're pulling from courts, we're pulling from security, we're pulling from different units, or even calling people just to get this unit situated. And this is not just a transport to and from the hospital. I didn't have a deputy sit on an individual, a pregnant detainee for 6 months. That's taking a deputy away from the courts for 6 months. On top of if we have individuals that go into the custody of the police department, we sit on those individuals at the hospital. So this is not just transporting, this is taking a deputy from the courts, from the core duties, sit them in the hospital for whatever time that these detainees need to sit in there.
Alderman, am I hearing you right? That I think what you're asking from a budget committee and an understanding to the sheriff is a number of what this is going to cost, how many staff would you additionally need to be able to make sure that this hospital program is ran effectively so that we do not 3 months or 4 months down the line get another letter saying we will not be doing this. Am I hearing you right?
That's exactly right.
So we need additionally 20 deputies for this hospital unit at $42,000 a year. That's roughly about 800 or 900 some $1,000 roughly. So we need 20 additional FTE slots for this unit.
Let me move on. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So let's talk about your May 30 memorandum. Educate me. Again, I'm the new guy here, but you made reference to this downtown security detail. We have talked at length about the 4 core duties of your department. What is the downtown security detail?
I'm glad that you asked that question. So the downtown security detail is a detail that was established under the previous administration, where the sheriff deputies secured a Washington Street downtown area from crime, as you've seen in the past with individuals jumping on top of police cars and the youth downtown turn up different businesses. It run businesses away, it run tourists away, and we just want to move forward with a more. We all have. Number one, a top priority, and that's making sure that we work towards a more safer and secure St. Louis. And that's part of me entering in, is that helping department to say, hey, we're able to do this at this cost.
And this goes back to my theory about staying in, and this is how we got off on that golf cart discussion a couple of weeks ago. This idea that your department, like streets, like forestry, like whatever it might be, has a particular lane defined by, as you've described it or identified it, core responsibilities. And again, from a budgetary perspective, when we're trying to figure out how you're employing your deputies, again, educate me. I'm not trying to set you up.
I'm glad that you asked that question. Basically, you want to know who pays for that. So the city of St. Louis has a contract with the sheriff's office, the same as the treasurer's office has a contract with the sheriff's office to do security for the parking lots. So, and Alderman from the 14, you mentioned about the downtown detail. I'm sure your residents have asked about that. Maybe you can elaborate on what downtown detail looks like and how it has had an effect on decreasing crime here in the city.
But your point for the purposes of budget is that, hey, Devotee, you can find a contract between my department and the city of St. Louis where we're obligated to do certain things. That's your point.
Absolutely, and that's all that I asked for. That's why we're in this this conversation of the budget. We're like I told you guys before. You're new on the Board of Aldermen. I'm new at the Sheriff's Office. We have reviewed policies, and we will continue to review policies and contracts. And this is one contract that I asked about. And the response that I got is, hey, it was a handshake deal. Well, I can't do a handshake deal. Let's get something in writing. Let's get a memorandum of understanding. We all have seen the sheriff work the downtown detail in downtown Washington. So under my administration, I was under the assumption that we will continue. But apparently something has changed with the changing of the office.
I appreciate that. Thank you. The last subject I want to ask about is the so-called budget crisis, because I have heard you talk about the budget crisis, both to us during your testimony, during these hearings, but also, of course, in these letters and memorandum. We have all seen by this point information that indicates, well, my understanding is that as of the 1st of May, your department is running a deficit of about $635,000. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And out of that deficit, you would admit that $491,000 and change is because of actions directly taken by you with respect to the termination of 17 long-term employees,
Yes.
right?
17 administrators. So the same as when the mayor came in office, she came in with her own administration. I did the same exact thing. I came in with my own administration.
Understood. And as part of that process of coming in and forming your own administration, you terminated, you let go 17 long-term employees.
Some individuals say I terminated, some individuals retired on documentation. So we have to, and all of that is pending litigation. So I can't go into detail on whether they were terminated or not.
But you would agree with me that with respect to those 17 employees that today are not working with your department, but were on December 31, that the cost of that is $491,000, correct?
Mr. Alderman, if I may.
Please.
Those individuals that you're giving reference to, as the Alderwoman has brought to our attention, those individuals had comp time that precede, first of all, they're not even supposed to have comp time. As y'all just uses y'all's salary, it's actually in our policy and bylaws that an administrator cannot have comp time, but that's what they had, and they paid themselves all out before the administration took office. So myself, I think it's a criminal matter because you shouldn't even have comp time, but you said you did, and so we can't argue. And I'm talking about 500 hours CT.
Well, I think we're talking semantics, but words, of course, are very important. I mean, the accrual or payment of those monies was after January 1 of 2025, correct?
Well, actually, it's not semantics because if you really think about it, because you brought it up saying, hey, you released these people, and most of these people retired, but they did go on the news media saying that they were fired.
So that we are efficiently kind of getting through the questions that the Alderman has and also Alderman Browning and make sure we get to the public, I think if we can stick to, I think what he is asking, regardless personnel-wise, we won't get into details, but
yes, sir. Is
this the amount of money that your department inherited or took on when you let go of these individuals?
Yes, sir. We had an agreement with you, Alderman.
No, and I understand that, but I want to make sure that the record is clear, because when I heard the responses to Alderwoman Sagnier's questions, I think the impression that folks would have is that the prior administration made payments to the tune of about $250,000 before your administration took office.
Yes.
That is not accurate, right?
That is correct, actually. And we have the documentation to show it. Vernon Bett's name is on every documentation that paid out for those retirements. Alfred Montgomery, as the sheriff, did not pay any of that out. When we walked in that door, a check was already put into the system for those individuals to be paid out. And I'd like to note, for the record, that these individuals were paid 600 comp time to go to school, the same as they charged former Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner for, which is criminal.
Okay.
Thank you.
And keep in mind also, Alderman, these individuals went to school off the record. So they weren't even on the clock at the time that they went to school. So not only did the state pay the blue bill for them to go get posts, the city also paid them for going to get posts when they were not even at work at the time.
I guess my point, and this, I promise, this will be my last question. I apologize. My point is that those obligations all came due almost immediately because of the end of employment of 17 different folks overnight, correct?
That's correct.
Got it.
That's the former administration.
I appreciate your patience with me
Oh, absolutely.
as I spoke with you. Thank you very much.
Together again, I'm new to this, same way you're new to this, but we're learning as we go. And any mistake that we make, hey, we learn from our mistakes and we get better at it.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And again, I'm going to go to Alderman Browning as he asks his questions. If we can get as much information detail out, but try to be as kind of straight to the answer so that we can get to our general public on the budget. Alderman Browning.
Thank you. Sheriff, I'll start with the good. I want to thank you and your deputies for your work with the disaster relief. I saw you out there. I saw the good you're doing, and I always want to acknowledge good work. So I just want to get that out there because I think it's really important that we're all showing up when our city needs it. I, like my colleagues, had a lot of questions about the office's core duties, and as you ask for more money, to accomplish those core duties, our attention is brought to all the things that your office appears to be doing that are not underneath those core duties. So we already covered that the Sheriff's Office is responsible for safety and security of the courtrooms, transportation of prisoners between courts and detention facilities, and serving court papers, as well as concealed carry permits. And you said you disagreed that those were the only 4 items?
No, I agree.
You agree with that? Okay. You said today that you were walked out of the CJC. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. So January 1st, just to explain to you guys, and first, and before maybe the next month is out or this month out, I invite you guys to come to a walkthrough at the Sheriff's Office with me for a better understanding. So the CJC has the jail, the corrections. We have a small side with about 6 cells that we operate. We have the locking mechanism keyboard that we use to lock and unlock doors that's operated by deputies. CJC controls the master control. So they give us the access to use that locking mechanism. On that side of the jail is considered the sheriff's side of the jail. So that's all operations of the sheriff's office. That's where we house our detainees when they're going to court, when they come to court, the transfer between the detainees. So that's kind of where we elaborate on that. We were locked out of our side of the jail.
Okay, and so the difficulty I'm having here, there's a track record here in less than a year that you've been in office of repeated instances where this office has gone outside the scope of its duties. From a Post-Dispatch story this morning by Austin Huglet, it says the new sheriff has been buffeted by controversy since taking office in January. He is criticized for ordering the handcuffing of a top jail official, which prompted a federal investigation. He's been sued after telling a deputy to roll golden dice for his job. He has raised eyebrows at the purchase of a $12,000 worth of golf carts and creation of a new no gossip policy, which promptly leaked to the media. Then we hear about you threatening to stop transporting detainees for medical care, which, as Alderwoman Sagne and multiple of my colleagues have mentioned, raises prompt concerns about people's safety and their care. The office seems to be focused on these things, and at the same time, you're asking for more money to accomplish your basic tasks. Have you considered cutting down on the things that are not under your office's purview in order to have the staff and money in order to accomplish your core duties?
That's why we're here. I tried to cut down. You guys had me in a budget meeting on not something that's in my core duties. Again, you guys are asking me to, at one point, stick to your core duties. And I'm trying my best to stick to my core duties at the same time while asking me, but we need you to do this. It doesn't make sense to me. And it's confusing me as the sheriff of the city of St. Louis to do so. Now, as to the stories that you guys have posted, that you have seen according to the Post and any other media outsource, hey, media outsources, some things are reported that's just not true. Some things I can't talk about because I'm tied up in litigation where I can't speak about. But once all this is over, the same way with one of the cases where a former deputy accused me of stalking or harassing him, the judge sided in my favor. So whenever this go to court, I will say, like we serve the 22nd Circuit, let's wait to due process. Let's not point the fingers. Let's not say anybody is guilty until we're proven innocent.
But to threaten to stop the transportation of detainees who need medical care while simultaneously using a sheriff personnel and vehicle to pick up and drop your kids off at school, can you see why that's a little hard to swallow?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Again, everything here is pending litigation, so I can't go into details. You should probably wait until all this is wrapped up from litigation and you'll have a better understanding. Number one, I just want to put on the record that I will never use the city dime to pick up my children at all. Nor no city employee at all. Let's just wait till the litigation come through. Let's just wait until we go before court. Let's just wait until the investigation is complete, and then we can talk more about these situations. We can't go by the news sources. Their job is entertainment. This is business as the operations of the sheriff's office. Everything they put out may have some truth to it. It may not have some truth. But right now, it's misreporting.
I'd argue that the media's job is to inform, but I think
a wise man
it's a little
once
hard
said that if you listen to the media.
I'm asking questions here. To fire 17 deputies, I think my colleague mentioned it costing the city almost $500,000. Then to say you don't have enough deputies to then go do your core duties. Again, you bought new uniforms and new badges. What did that cost?
I don't have the exact cost on it, but one thing I ran on, the same way you have to deal with your constituents, I serve my constituents. That's what got me elected. Again, we're building this office from the ground up. We're building this office from ground zero. They were terminated. We came in with our own administration, the same as the mayor's office came in with her administration. There's no difference. Only difference is, and everybody know this, is there's 2 different offices, and I'm black and she's white. That's the difference. I came in with my own administration. She came in with her own administration. So what's the difference? I want to know from you, Mr. Brown,
clarify
what's the
what you
difference?
mean by that?
What I'm saying is I did the exact same thing. The exact same thing. It's my prerogative to come in with my own administration, to bring individuals with me or to promote individuals within. So you tell me what's the difference between me and the mayor when bringing in.
Right, she's the mayor, so.
I'm the sheriff.
Understood. It just.
What's the difference, Mr. Brown?
You're asking us to wait to find out more about these things that have been reported, but it's very difficult for us to do our jobs. We have to do the budget right now.
Well, if you focus on a budget off of news media,
with all respect,
that's not the right way to go about it. We have to stick to business here. You have to put the people over politics. We can't listen.
So Sheriff, to bring some decorum, and I understand you want to respond back and get your message out. So the way that this works is Alder's, when we're yielding a view. So he has the floor to be able to, answer his question. And if we can try to get through these questions so that they are pertain to how we can support, would be helpful. But the Alderman does have the floor to continue to ask questions. So if you could try not to cut him off and just answer his questions, and if need to elaborate on it, please do, but he is leading the conversation.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So like I was saying, it's very difficult for us to do our jobs to figure out what money the sheriff's office needs to do its core duties. Especially when we receive news media reports, when we receive threats from your office to stop doing those duties, and we receive contradictory information. What you're saying is we need this money, trust us, and the problem is that it is very hard to trust you. I don't have any more questions. That's the conclusion of my comment. Thank you.
Well, again, my job is to stick to the core duties of the sheriff's office. My job is to transport detainees to and from court, secure the court, and also make sure that there's a bailiff in every courtroom while delivering legal documentations. Now, I'm asking you guys, as the board, if you need something from us, we need something from you. I cannot neglect the courts in order to continue the services for the city. I have to make sure it's going to be a struggle, and all I'm asking for is for the support. We can't allow the media to interfere with the process of the sheriff's office. We have been doing an awesome job that has not been covered. We are fully staffed for the first time within the past decade. We have been out here in the community when a state of emergency is out here. Not only that, we've been out here since day one. We have advanced the office. We are looking to advance policy and procedures to more modernize the department. I invite you all to come down and look at the changes that we have done that has not been broadcasted.
Thank you. Sheriff, thank you for your team for being here. Ms. Tashana, I think what would be helpful, no, we cannot take a recess because the public has been waiting. We will take a recess after the public, but I think, Ms. Tashana, if you can provide, I think what Alderman Devotee, and I'm curious also, is like everybody on this committee, this program, detail, process that has been going on for a while can't not stop. Maybe long-term, there's a MOU figured out between the city, but we need to know what is the support. I think the Alderwoman from the 7 was correct. When y'all presented y'all budget, you talked about computer support, you talked about Regis. You didn't talk about needing more personnel to run this. You didn't give hard numbers. When it comes to the budget committee, we can't just go and say, hey, throw out this number to ENA without actually being able to back it up to know, how much it's going to cost for employees, and then we calculate the insurance and everything like that. So I would ask, we probably cannot make a decision on that right now, but we would hope that in the future we can get those numbers so that we could try to be supportive.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, with that, we're going to move into decision item number 2, hearing from the public. If you would like to speak on the FY26 budget and you are here in the room, please sign up. Madam Clerk, how many people do we have online? Okay. Where can I sign up? You can sign up over here, right by this desk. And once we hear from the public, we will take a 10-minute recess before we go into amendments on the budget. So folks that are listening to the budget online and in person, after we hear from everybody, we will only take a quick 10-minute recess, and then we will come back to make amendments to the budget for folks to continue to watch the process. But with that, we are going to, since I know you just signed up and I know you've been here, I'm going to take one online, one in person. We're going to go back and forth. So everyone that is testifying, the other individual that is online, if you can please turn your camera on so that we could swear you in. Is the other person online, Ms. Orr, brought over to the room? Okay. These are two people? Okay. Everybody online and everybody in the room, if you can raise your right hand for me. Everybody that's testifying on the budget. Are you testifying on the budget? Raise your right hand. Do you all swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help me God. I see the two head shakes in the TV, and that's the comments in the room. All right. So we are going to start with Ms. Tracy. You have 4 minutes to speak on the budget. After Ms. Tracy, we will go to the room, and then we'll go to the other individual online. Everyone will have 4 minutes to speak on the budget. Ms. Tracy, whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Hello, thank you all. My name is Tracy Stanson. I'm a resident of the First Ward. I have been a resident of the North Side, West Side for the majority of my life. And so the first thing that I want to talk about today is the budget hearings. As a community organizer who has been doing this work for some time, we've always had grievances around accessibility. And while I appreciate like the first budget meeting being postponed after the tornado, I do understand that business has to go on as usual, but I do believe that the communities from the underserved, historically divested communities where the tornado was hit do not have access to the information about these meetings and did not have access to the information about these meetings. And the community organizations who usually organize people to ensure that they get the information and get to these meetings were busy like self-deploying against the mayor's recommendation. And so I do have a problem with that. I'm grateful that Action St. Louis was able to organize some folks on Saturday morning and Saturday AM to testify, but I do feel like we could have paused to ensure that people got information and had accessibility to these meetings. I do want to thank every Board of Aldermen and the Sheriff's Office, even though I do have some, I have feelings around the abruptness of wanting to stop the transferring detainees to hospitals, knowing the alarming rates of death in the St. Louis City Justice Center. I do want to acknowledge and commend the aldermen and the sheriff's office for deploying to help the community members. I was a little taken aback, although I do also understand that I believe Ms. Velasquez was trying to get clarity around their roles and not their roles and things of that nature. But it was very alarming because, we've been out with the community and more, the community has been out with the community more than the city officials. And so like that was a little irritating and like I felt like very disingenuous, but I also understand, I believe the point that she was trying to make. The second thing that I want to acknowledge before I go into the specific budget is that I believe the new alderman spoke many times about the importance of language, and he kept referring to the detainees as prisoners. So just a little bit of education, which I'm sure he probably knows. The city jail houses people who have not been convicted of crime. So prisons house prisoners, quote unquote, people who have been convicted of crime. So I think just being clear about having common language all around is very, very important, especially for those that have been impacted and are currently in CJC. As it relates to the city budget, I do see that there has been a 7% increase in raises for the police department, and which also leads to 5.6 increase over the current fiscal year. Approximately 70% of the total police budget is funded from the general revenue, while there has been a decrease in the funds for OVP, a decrease in affordable housing, a decrease in the Department of Mental Health. And so again, I'm always going to just acknowledge how are we using our funds as the St. Louis City Department, especially knowing that the state is taking over local control. So that is projected to increase to even like 25%. And so I have some issues around that. And especially as it relates to like affordable housing, right now is definitely not the time to be reducing funds or cutting from some public housing. From affordable housing. And the last thing that I want to say is, or maybe not the last thing, the mental health, the projected increase of 2.7 million for the corrections as it relates to like the mental health, which I really, really value the not just the mental health, the medical care. I really, really value detainees having access to proper medical care. However, from Doug Boris's report, like 1 in 4 individuals inside of CJC are like dealing with mental health issues and mental illnesses. And so the jail is using this as a means to house those people. And so I would like to really see how we can get those people to where they need to be so that we can reduce the amount of people that are in the jail, because that is increasingly rising at a rapid rate. And he also stated many of these people will be better served with proper community mental health services, which the state of Missouri surely lacks. And while a number of people are admitted to the jail because of failed community health systems, there are others who develop mental health issues because they were what they experienced in the jail. So I would like to, and then we already know the average length of stay, which we always bounce around and saying it's the judges or it's the circuit attorney's office or whatever the case may be. But literally we can reduce the amount of people in the jail, then we can reduce the amount of money that we are continuing to fund in the jail. And then also I would like to see, and maybe that's something I overlooked, that we're gonna spend $4 million to FEMA for the failed, to replace the warning system. The system definitely needs to be replaced. $4 million, is it really going to take $4 million? Where that money could be used to support the individuals in the community who have been impacted by the travesty that happened with the tornado, and as well as the lack of responsibility that happened and took place, being that the sirens had just worked the prior day before. And that's really all that I have. Also, I would really, really like to see a plan, like a concrete plan. I thank you all for the bill that was introduced, but we need a plan. And the fact that like the people in the communities have self-deployed and are taking PTO and doing all of these things, and then the mayor continues to pop up at these sites as if she has been doing anything, is really like, it's really not fair, right, or just. So yeah, that's all I have to say. And again, thank you to the people who have the responsibility of caring for this city and who have also been out with the people that have been directly impacted by this travesty. I really want the city to do more and have more of a detailed plan about how they're going to spend these funds, as well as how they're going to spend the RAMS money as it relates to what needs to be done in our city for our people. And thank you all to the people that self-deployed.
Love it. Thank you, Ms. Tracy, for being here, and thank you, and I'll say it to everybody, thank you for sticking around, knowing that this was scheduled at 10. So thank you for sticking around to make sure your voice was heard on the budget. Madam Clerk, who's the person in the room that's next?
Lauren Wolf.
All right, Ms. Lauren, if you can just state your first and last name or ward you reside in, and you will have 4 minutes. Whenever you're ready with your setup, we will not rush you.
Thank you. It's not me, not you.
Oh, that's fine. They say I got a face for camera and TV too. But if you're just talking to the mic so we can hear you.
Yeah, my name is Lauren Wolf. I am with the 4th Ward. I live just south of Forest Park. I was without power for 6 days, which is a small inconvenience compared to a lot of the other devastation that people have incurred from this devastating tornado. For future reference, I would like to make a recommendation to all of you to have the public ability to speak prior to scheduled follow-ups. For those of us that are here outside of our jobs, you all, including the Sheriff's Department, are conceptually paid to be here as government employees, whereas the rest of us have possibly had to sacrifice our pay to spend time here today. So the reason I'm here is actually to call out the conflict of interest with Mayor Spencer's developer ties. Mayor Spencer's campaign took $287,000 from real estate developers, according to the Missouri Ethics Commissions, including $45,000 from Lux Living LLC, which has been identified as slumlords displacing Black families, $32,500 from Green Street St. Louis, which has been identified in gentrifying the Tower Grove South neighborhood. These same donors now lobby for tornado recovery contracts while North City families sleep in shelters. You cannot ethically oversee a process bankrolled by those that will profit from their displacement. We demand her immediate recusal from all recovery funding votes. Also, if you have not noticed how I am dressed, I am going to call out St. Louis's blood money with Boeing and Gaza. This budget includes a $158 million in tax breaks for Boeing, whose St. Louis facility produces over 18,000 joint direct attack mutations, also known as JDAMs, annually, and that's from Forbes, or 5 F-15 fighter jets used to bomb Gaza, and that's from the Air Force Times. These weapons have murdered over 15,000 Palestinian children, and our St. Louis taxpayers are subsidizing the genocide. The connection between capitalism at home and abroad, you might want to know. Just as developers exploit our tornado survivors, Boeing exploits war for profit. $12.7 billion in 2023 military contracts and $0 reinvested in North City's crumbling infrastructure prior to this tornado. So to clarify, it is clear to the people that our city prioritizes bombs over homes and war profiting over working families. So this budget must revoke Boeing's tax breaks until attacks on Gaza and other colonized countries facing genocide end, and divest $158 million into climate resilient housing and the trauma care of government perpetuation of PTSD. Because if you are unaware, SLU Medical School actually did a study recently in 2024 that identified 40% of St. Louis children already suffer from PTSD from childhood adversity. And so add in watching the live stream of a democide while also having your own home ripped away from you, which in a hindsight, this tornado was a perfect storm for the mayor's support by development investors. So the call to action, will the mayor stand with development bombing North City with gentrification, or with the people? Will she recuse herself from recovery votes? Will we divest from bombing, no more blood money? And will we fund reparations instead of repression? And to anyone that cares, I do have a petition on change.org that is a proposed bill that I will be putting in front of all of you sometime very soon, that does have a fiscal outline of how we can actually help the community. This is our city. We refuse to let it be a graveyard or a playground for profiteers. We're watching. History is watching. Save St. Louis and free Palestine.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for being patient to wait here to make sure your voice was heard.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, could you go to the young lady online, and to the young lady online, if you can just state your first and last name and award you reside in.
The next speaker is Kelby.
Ms. Kelby, you just go off of mute, and then you have 4 minutes to proceed.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Kelby Estes Nelson. I have been a member of many wards. The most recent is the 13th. So first, thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I did want to say to the sheriff's office, thank you so much for getting out during the tornado situation, because I was out there and it was very devastating. So to see that people took comp time to go out and to do that, to people to just volunteer and go out to do that, I appreciate that if no one else does. I also wanted to make mention of this before I speak on the budget. And watching you all interact, it is very disheartening to watch Alderwoman Velazquez and Sheriff Alfred Montgomery go back and forth because there was like a lack in decorum. And I understand that when the alderperson has the floor, they are talking and asking the questions, but just in the way that that was being said, as if, I have the floor, the way you guys are saying it is so rude talking to another person. I challenge you to change that. Moving forward, it was stated in the beginning, as far as the sheriff's department, that the previous administration took off with this 400,000, this large amount of money, and that's why they were left in a deficit and why they are asking for help. And I'm not sure why we spent so much time going over that over and over again and making accusatory statuses about how they were let go. And if everybody is not on the same page of that, you all are the alderwomen and aldermen. So you guys should know if they took the money. You guys should know if this is something that's in litigation and can't be spoken of. And we shouldn't make anybody that's standing up to try to speak to you about this feel as if it was their issue if it was not. And it's also misleading to the public. So that information, when we're talking about things like that, I think we should have a very clear-cut way of expressing it, where it's not making it seem like one person was the problem when everybody in the room and everybody doing the job is the issue if it's not working properly. You're all supposed to work together. The budget that I looked at that I had questions about, the personnel budget was mainly one of the ones I was taken back by. There are multiple positions on there that it looks like were not filled. However, there were large amounts of money given for that budget. So where is that money going? Because if we look at executive assistant 1, HR generalist, administrative assistant 2, none of those positions were filled, but that totals about $600,000. And I didn't see anywhere that it was itemized, that it was itemized to go somewhere else. So where is that money is one of the things I want to know. And I also noted that this was like an emergency clause, as if you guys are going to rush this budget. But if we're rushing this budget, then why not include the tornado? Because that's something that just recently happened and it's a huge impact to the city. And we don't have any assistance for it financially right now. As Tracy mentioned, so many people are getting out on the front lines doing this themselves. And without the help of the people in the neighborhoods coming out and putting these tarps up and boarding up these windows, the members of this community would be completely displaced. And majority of them are anyway. So like money like this is 600,000, and that's just the minimum of what I saw. I read through numbers. I have held a position as a business manager. I've done accounting. So just looking at all of these budgets seem a little bit off. We're taking money from, Civilian Oversight Board, who make sure that the police are still being compliant, but then the police are getting a raise. That's alarming. That's alarming. We're taking from the people that make sure everything is going well and that they're not doing horrible things like sicking dogs on people, but they're receiving a raise. I can't understand that, and I wish we would have spent a little bit more time on things like that. I'm glad we talked about the transport of the detainees because that was really something on my mind, and that was the main thing I came here to speak on outside of the tornado. But just in listening to the exchange between you all, that was harder than just reading through all of this because it doesn't seem like anybody is on the same page. And it's a lot of pointing the finger. And it's a lot of talking like, I appreciate you, Chair, for saying how we all waited. But this whole time that we've been sitting here waiting, you guys have been saying the same things over and over again, as if the previous alderman or woman didn't listen to the answers that were just given. You don't need to waste time like that because time is of the essence, and all of this money that's being misappropriated, all of these funds, and we're not even helping the people in our community is sickening to see. It is really sickening to see. And then the last thing that I wanted to, because it's just like popping out of my mind, why do we have so many HR positions? 15 senior specialists, 6 generalists. I don't even think those were filled last year. HR supervisor, HRIS analyst, HRIS records and management, HR manager, like, that's taking up so much of personnel, but then there's funding being dropped in the places that it needs to be. I just really want to challenge the city to do a lot better in its spending. If I was auditing this, everybody would be in trouble. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for sticking around. and for having your input on the budget. Madam Clerk, who's the next person in the room?
We have Ms. Barb Schwartz?
All right, Ms. Barb, when you make it on up, and then I know we have another person online. We'll get to them and swear you in. Ms. Barb, just state your first and last name. If you need to remove the mic or to let it down, you can do either one. But you may
Barb
proceed.
Schwartz is my name.
Barb Schwartz. You may
And
proceed.
I'm here because, I should say first, I'm here and I've never seen anything like this in my life, and I've had a long life. I'm 86 years old. I've lived in St. Louis all my life. Thank you. And I started and ran my own business for 25 years. So I was an entrepreneur. And it was a successful business, and I sold it. I could make a decision, and it happened, whatever I decided was the right thing to do, happened immediately. I didn't have to check in with anybody. It was my decision. I was on the line. If it didn't work, I better change it and do something else that worked. So I've never been involved in government, and I have a granddaughter who's very concerned about what's going on locally with the whole situation here that's come to the front of this kid's mind with this tornado, the horror of this tornado. Caught us all off guard. And so she was telling me about how she's been trying to help, and the organizations locally, like Action St. Louis, and I don't remember all the names, that have been on the ground. And I think that's amazing. And St. Louis should feel proud of that. But the major problem, when I listened to her and her friends talk, the major problem that they bring up is that the people in the government don't seem to understand what's going on for the people on the ground, the people in the Ville, the people in the north area, where the people who have the least to help them recover have the greatest recovery that they need. These are people with homes that are, many of them, handed down from generation to generation. You don't have any insurance on those homes. You know, people where I live say, well, they should pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They don't have any bootstraps. They blew off in the tornado. And I found when I was in business, and this is my point, that I got my best information if I stood up front and listened to what my customers told my counter people. This was a small food business called Gourmet to Go. And if I listened to those counter people, they told me what I needed to do, what was good, what was working, what wasn't, what people were asking for. I got the best information from them, and many of those employees, a large number of them, were school kids, high school kids, who were working that counter after school. But they heard what I didn't hear. I would ask you all, here, talk to those people on the ground that are volunteering and working so hard in those communities that really need help now. I can give money, and I can do, I can talk. Doesn't count. Those guys are on the ground. They know what's happening. Please listen to them. They really need help. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your time. Madam Clerk, for the person online, if you can raise your hand so I can swear you in. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All righty. State your first and last name, and you may proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. I am Melanie Marie. Good afternoon, Chairperson, members of the Budget Committee, and our community champions as well, Kayla Reed and Ohan, who have self-deployed and galvanized the community in the time of crisis. I am a Ferguson resident, but I have a strong and firm belief that Ferguson is everywhere and that there's one St. Louis. So when we experienced our crisis 11 years ago, the entire city and the entire world came out. And so I'm doing that in solidarity with the entire St. Louis. I stand as a voice for 5,000 families who lost their homes and the 11 lives plus lives who we will never get back from the devastating tornado on May 16th. Our community is resilient, but resilience does not rebuild roofs or restore equity without meaningful investment. Today, I'm proposing that we find a way within the budget for a multi-phase financial recovery plan. And I know I spoke over the weekend and I did not have a plan in mind. I didn't have numbers in mind, but I'm coming back today hoping that we can come with something rooted in equity, transparency, and urgency. I'm hoping for some sort of emergency housing stabilization fund, roughly $50 million in unrestricted disaster relief grants directly to assist displaced residents prioritizing Black and low-income neighborhoods to avoid post-disaster gentrification. I'm also proposing some sort of community reinvestment and workforce program, roughly around $20 million, an initiative that will fund neighborhood-led rebuilds, hiring local contractors and youth through paid apprenticeships and construction programs. I'm also hoping for some sort of public infrastructure restoration as well, where we can dedicate funds to rapidly repair public schools, streets, and utility lines, partnering with federal recovery grants to stretch every dollar. And lastly, I really have serious concerns about the ordinance that has been in the media where insurance claims 25% goes to the city, which is an automatic allocation. And I was concerned about where those dollars had traditionally gone leading up until now. And forgive me, because like Tracy said earlier, I haven't been educated on all of the meetings and haven't been there if this has been spoken to or not. But I'm curious to see where those dollars went and if there's something that we could do to redirect those dollars in this time of crisis. This isn't just about the dollars, though. It's about the dignity. I really don't want us to repeat the erasure that we saw post Katrina. Let's choose recovery that reflects the values of the people who call this city home in the heart and soul of it. So I'm hoping that we can come to some type of medium here to really serve the needs of the community because it is very urgent. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your time, and thank you for the work that you're doing with the people response also. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody else online?
We have a Jess mask that I'm trying to send over, but it keeps saying decline, but let's see.
Okay, we can take a little moment.
So it's the Jess mask. I'm trying to promote them over, but they keep saying declined. Let's see. Let's see.
The Zoom tight.
There they go.
All righty. Jess, if you could turn your camera on for us, and if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, Jess, you have 4 minutes. Please proceed.
So I just want to support what the last two people have been saying. I am not a city resident. I do some work with city organizations and other developers and nonprofits in the city. And my purpose of a lot of my work is to try and bridge the gap between county folks that have less melanin in their skin like I do, and see an opportunity to really support and make it a historic example of what St. Louis can be. And so, I'm asking that the city officials really take into heart what has been said right before me by the past two people, as well as others, that as much an investment as we can make into the talent and the humans that live there is very important, that we not just see this as a black and brown issue, but this has been an intentional harm for many years that the tornado has exacerbated, but that there's a really beautiful, talented group of people that will uplift our entire our entire economy if we really invest in it the right way and not gentrify it. And so I will be continuing to do the work. I just wanted to, introduce myself and also, ask that everybody on the panel consider that this is a real investment into the talent and to the economy and into really making a historic change. St. Louis has a bad history of, of being known for certain things, from Dred Scott to Shelley versus Kramer to the Mike Brown situation. And it's time to take that St. Louis pride that we all have and really reinvest in some reparative justice. And I just wanted to show my support to that, whether it's, if the Rams and NFL money can be used, but there are people showing themselves up to show that we really want to support the people that were hit the hardest by the tornado. And I think we can take this momentum and really do something historic. And I think it's valuable, not just for historic purposes, from a shallow standpoint, but from a real value standpoint, that there is a real talent pool that has been attacked and oppressed and suppressed, and we can argue about the words, but we can do an intentional healing that'll be valuable to us all, economically, spiritually, and every other which way. And so I just wanted to voice that as we're considering these budgetary things.
Thank you so much, Jess, for your time, and thank you for coming to put input on the city's budget. Madam Clerk, did we have
Thank you.
No problem, thank you. Did we have anybody else online?
No, that will be all.
Anybody else in person?
No.
All righty. So we will take a 15-minute recess. We will come back at 11:55 word time to resume the Budget Committee and to do amendments to the FY26 budget. I'll take a motion to recess until 11:55.
I move that we recess as the Budget and Public Employees Committee until 55 a.m.
Moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderwoman of the 7th, that we recess to 11:55. All right, the Budget and Public Employees is back from our recess, and with that, a third item under committee discussion will be the FY26 budget. So we will now move back to board bills for review and take up board bill number 1. And with that, I will turn it over to the Vice Chair.
Thank you. Alderman Aldridge, you are recognized on board bill number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Board Bill number 1 is the FY26 budget. The board bill that for the last 4 or 5 weeks now, I want to thank this committee for the commitment and dedication and great questions of diving into the budget. I know for Alderman Devote, was a new member and have just done a fabulous job. To Alderwoman Sanye, always come with great questions, and I know it's and Alderwoman Velasquez, also who was on the committee last go round too. Glad to have you guys back, and to have you, Vice Chair Browning, with how efficient you have been, and just also great questions. But I want to just thank this committee for really being intentional about the budget. Also want to thank Mr. Coleman, who is our Board of Aldermen fiscal analyst, that has been helpful with us, making sure when certain question on line items or the annual budget that we have the right information. I want to thank Mr. Heskamp and Mrs. Smith, LA of the 9th Ward and LA of the 14th Ward, for also making sure that this committee can flow. But when it comes to the FY26 budget, Board Bill number 1 is that. And I know there will be some amendments to be made on the budget. This budget covers every department from Water Division, St. Louis Airport, Affordable Housing, Healthcare, Circuit Attorney's Office, the Fire Department, EMT, every department within the city of St. Louis. And I think we got a decent one, and I look forward to hopefully some changes that we have out of this committee to make it better. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would open up for any questions, or if we want to go ahead to I'll just open it up for discussion.
Okay, with that, to see if any committee members have anything to discuss. We've been here a while, so
yes.
I think we've had a lot of discussion. You are welcome to proceed.
Actually, maybe Alderman Devote wanted to go first.
Okay, so with that, Alderman Devote, you're recognized on Amendment 1.
Yes, I've got 2 amendments that go hand in hand together. First, with respect to Amendment number 1, this would be to eliminate from the city councilor's budget the equivalent of $150,156, which is equal to or specific to 2 Attorney 1 positions, and then essentially move that those funds, which would be dealt with by Amendment number 2, to be reallocated following discussion with personnel into Attorney 4 positions. You might recall during a discussion with the city councilor, Mike Garvin, that he does have 2 open Attorney 1 positions, that the city councilor needs more experienced, more seasoned litigators to defend and work on behalf of the city of St. Louis. So the purpose of these 2 amendments is to accomplish that want.
Thank you. Would you like to move that we adopt Amendment number 1 to Board Bill number 1 at this time?
I would move that, yes.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded by, I heard the Alderman from the 6th first, and the Alderman from the 5th made the motion. With that, we will, if you don't have anything else to say on this.
I'm sorry, Alderman Aldrich. That was 6 and 7, or was it?
5 made the motion and 6 made the second.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll go through the committee to see if anyone has any questions by order of seniorities. Alderwoman Sanye. No question. Alderman Aldridge.
No questions.
And sorry, you should have been first with the seniority.
You're fine.
My mistake. No questions from Alderman Velasquez. Alderman Devote?
No questions. I appreciate the consideration.
I also have no questions. It has been motioned and seconded. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Sanye.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Aye.
Alderman Devote.
Aye.
Chair Aldrich.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus. We have 5 aye votes.
With that, we have adopted Amendment number 1 to Board Bill number 1, which will now be as amended. And with that, Alderman Devote, you are now recognized on Amendment number 2.
So the second part of this is Amendment number 2, and this would be reallocation to the city councilor's office, a like amount of $150,156. This would be allocated to the department for the purpose of funding a raise for the attorney 4 positions that do now exist.
Okay, and with that, would you like to move that we adopt amendment number 2 to Board Bill number 1 as amended?
I so moved, yes.
Second.
Moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th. Is there any questions from the committee? Hearing a request for a previous roll. Hearing no objections. Congratulations, we've adopted amendment number 2 to Board Bill number 1 as amended. With that, I have a couple amendments that I'd like to put on the table. So I would move that we adopt amendment number 3.
Second.
For Bill number 1 as amended. Moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderman from the 7th. So what amendment number 3 does is it is the first part of a 2-step amendment that would remove one secretary, one position, and $100,000 of per performance from the neighborhood stabilization budget. And amendment number, the next amendment will place those funds into 2 other positions that the department has requested. So at this time, I've moved that we adopt the amendment. It's seconded.
Second.
It has been seconded. And is there a call for a previous roll?
Previous row.
Hearing a call for previous roll. Hearing no objections.
So there was 7, there was 9 and 7, previous roll was 7?
Yep. And at this time, amendment number 3 has been adopted for Board Bill number 1 as amended. Moving on to amendment number 4, which is the second half of this 2-step dance. This is to move those funds over into adding a customer service representative 2 and 1 customer service supervisor into the neighborhood stabilization team. And I note that all of the amendments that I'll be bringing forward today are endorsed by the departments. They are things that we worked with them actively on and things that they did present to our committee as requests that they had. So with that, I move that we adopt amendment number 4 to Board Bill number 1 as amended.
Second. Previous row.
Been moved, seconded, and just before we move on, anyone have any questions? And to call for previous roll. Hearing no objection, we've adopted amendment number 4 to Board Bill number 1 as amended. Moving on to amendment number 5, also one of mine. And sorry, I'm trying to catch up here. The numbers got all moved around. So amendment number 5 is addressing our building division. This would be adding a senior plan examiner, building inspector 2, and 1 payroll specialist that they had asked for. And amendment number 8 is going to be what will remove the money necessary in order to add these positions. So at this time, I'll move that we adopt amendment number 5 to Board Bill number 1 as amended.
Second. Previous row.
Seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th. And a call for previous roll. Hearing no objection, we've adopted amendment number 5. Trying to keep this in order. Amendment number 6, also one of mine. So what amendment number 6 is doing is it is removing money from the office supplies of the Public Safety Department, which is a budget, so we're moving money from the office supplies and the Public Safety Division, and then we will be, with amendment number 17 later on, we'll be adding money to health and safety supplies and a program coordinator for our SEMA department. This is something we heard about from our City Emergency Management Agency, but I'll get to that when we do that amendment. So at this time, I'll move that we adopt amendment number 6 to Board Bill number 1 as amended.
Second. Previous row.
Seconded by the Alderman for the 7th, and call for previous roll. Hearing no objection, we've adopted amendment number 6 to Board Bill number 1 as amended. Moving on, amendment number 7. I'm sorry, I'll have a lot of amendments. Amendment number 7 is going to be moving money over to the special demolition fund in order to add to utility workers. This money is coming from Amendment 13, which will remove money from the building inspection manager and $25,195 from health and safety supplies. So at this time, I'll move that we adopt Amendment number 7 to Board Bill number 1 as amended.
Second, previous row.
It's been seconded, and call for previous roll. We've adopted number 7 to Board Bill number 1 as amended. Amendment number 8. This is for the building division again. We are making sure that we are taking some money from them so that we can give it to another place. So this is removing the executive assistant number 2, a zoning inspector, and a customer service representative so that we can later add, or this is the money that we added in amendment number 5 for this exam, and building inspector 2 and a payroll specialist. With that, I will move that we adopt amendment number 8 to Board Bill number 1 as amended.
Second, previous row.
It's been seconded and previous roll has been called. Hearing no objection, we've adopted amendment number 8. And if anyone ever has any questions, please raise your hand and we will stop. I don't want to appear that we're rushing through questions. And with that, we are moving to amendment number 9. Alderwoman Saulnier, you on amendment number 9.
Thank you. So even my amendment number 9 is really simple. It is for our city emergency management agency. During their presentation, they indicated that they didn't have some key software, the most notable one being Salamander. Salamander is a software that is commonly used in emergency management companies that helps them to track and coordinate resources. And then there are some other things. I did send a detailed email. They don't have Adobe Live. They don't have Canva, just some other basic software that honestly I think every department should have, but certainly right now they should definitely have it. And it is about $5,000 in change. In discussion with the department and the administration, it is just left at that amount. They believe that this amount is small enough that they can figure out, where to pull the money from without us having to figure out where to cut it from. It's really small. It was already at $2,000. This would make it $7,000. So they have about $5,000 to file and I can take any questions with that.
Seeing no questions, I'll accept a motion to adopt amendment number 9.
I would like to make a motion to adopt amendment number 9.
Call seconded by the Alderwoman from the 6th. Call for previous roll from the Alderwoman from the 6th. Hearing no objection, we have adopted amendment number 9 to Board Bill number 1 as amended. Alderman Aldridge, you are recognized on amendment number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, amendment number 10 is a decreasing amendment from the Parks Department in per performance. The next amendment will be the increasing, but actually it's just moving money from per performance in this Parks Department to move it to utility workers at a sum of $116,938. And I would move that we adopt amendment number 10 to Board Bill 1 as amended.
Second, previous roll.
Moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 6th, and a call for previous roll from the Alderwoman from the 6th. Hearing no objection, we have adopted an amendment number 10 to Board Bill number 1 as amended. Alderman Aldridge, you are now recognized on amendment number 11.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Amendment number 11 is the adding of the two utility workers from the funds we just moved from per performance to be able to make sure that these slots for 2 utility workers are filled, and have also, like the Alderman from the 9th, worked with the department and they support this, as well as our budget director was seeing this being something reasonable and sensible. And with that, I will move that we adopt amendment number 11 to Board Bill 1 as amended.
Second, previous row.
Moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, and a call for previous roll from the Alderwoman from the 7th. Hearing no objection, we have adopted amendment number 11 to Board Bill number 1 as amended. Alderman Aldridge, you are now recognized on amendment number 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Amendment number 12, like most of the increase, understanding that we have the power to decrease, which allows us to send the budget over to E&A. Since it's an increasing, all our increases will be looked at as like a recommendation. This is an increase in amendment that we move $1 million from our reserves to go to impacted tenants fund. I know as I was trying to, find some funds, Alderwoman Sanye was a help with this as well. But make a motion that we adopt amendment number 12
Second.
from our reserves to go to impacted tenants.
Thank you. Hearing the motion from the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, and a call for previous roll from the Alderwoman from the 6th. And hearing no objection, we have passed amendment number 12. And let me just pause to say thank you to Alderman Aldridge for responding to the need that exists right now. I think we heard a lot from the public about a need for this board to respond to this disaster in a meaningful way. And because this is the bureaucratic process, it does not move at the speed of real life sometimes, and that's unfortunate in times like this, but this is one case where we can do something, and I really appreciate the Alderman for making this effort and wholeheartedly join him in endorsing this move, because I think it's an absolute need in our city right now. With that, Alderman, we've adopted amendment number 12 to Board Bill number 1 as amended, and the next amendment is mine. Amendment number 13. Amendment number 13 removes one of the building inspection manager and $25,000, $195 from the special demolition fund. This is something we mentioned earlier when we passed amendments number 5 and 8, that this is where the money would be coming from, discussed with the departments, and they are all in agreement. With that, I will move that we adopt amendment number 13 to a Board Bill number 1 as amended.
Second, previous row.
Seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th. Roll. Hearing no objection, we've adopted amendment number 13. Amendment number 14, also one of mine. This amendment is one that we're actually going to skip. We covered it with a different one. We're also going to skip number 15, and we're also going to skip number 16. Which moves to number 17, also one of mine. This amendment is adding $10,000 to health and safety supplies and one program coordinator for our city emergency management agency. Again, trying to focus money where it needs to go in order to help our city better respond to disasters in the future. When we had SEMA in front of us, I think we all were shocked when they told us that they were only 4 people in that office. And that is not enough to respond to a disaster of the scale that St. Louis just experienced. So it's not everything, but adding one program coordinator really increases their department personnel by 25%. So with that, I move that we would adopt amendment number 17 to Board Bill number 1 as amended.
Second, previous row.
One discussion.
If there's discussion, yes, Alderman Aldridge, you are recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Browning. I think a lot of these amendments in here are some good ones. I think this is also an excellent amendment. Unfortunately, during the disaster, we did not have, all the resources and did not know that was going to happen. And I think this position, our SEMA department is not largely staffed, and they have a big role to do to make sure that they keep us all safe in the city of St. Louis. So appreciate your leadership on adding a position to this department to make sure that hopefully SEMA has the support, not just now, but in the near future, to continue to try to keep us safe during disasters.
Thank you, Alderman. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing a second from Alderman.
Just one quick thing.
Alderwoman.
You did run this by, you did have discussions with SEMA
That's
or the
correct.
administration for this.
That's correct. There is no amendment in front of you today that we did not talk about with the departments and with the budget director to make sure that we had money to do and that everyone was okay with the movement of funds from one position to another in order to make sure that we can meet the needs of our city.
Great, thank you.
So with that, heard a motion by myself to adopt amendment number 17, seconded by the Alderman from the 7th, and a call for previous roll. Hearing no objection, we have adopted amendment number 17. We are making progress, everyone. All right, amendment number 18. Also one of mine, amendment number 18 is adding 2 painters to our traffic and lighting division in our streets department. This is something that we have noticed around the city, that we do not have crosswalks and stop sign bars and all sorts of other road markings refreshed as often as they need to be. And they see a lot of wear and tear from vehicles and weather. And so we want to make sure that we can make our city safe with the proper lane markings and traffic control markings. So with that, I move that we adopt amendment number 18 to Board Bill number 1 as amended. Seconded by the Alderman from the 6th. Call for previous roll from the Alderman from the 6th. Hearing no objection, we've adopted an amendment number 18. Amendment number 19. This is for the Refuse Division. It adds 1 government services analyst to the Refuse Department so that they can optimize their routes and do what they need to do in order to get our trash picked up. We all appreciate that. So with amendment number 19, I move that we adopt amendment number 19 to Board Bill number 1 as amended. Seconded by the Alderwoman from the 6th, and a call for previous roll from Alderwoman from the 6th. Hearing no objection, we've adopted amendment number 19. Amendment number 20, we can also skip, not doing that one. And that brings us all the way back and down to the last one, which is amendment number 21. That is one of mine as well, also for the Refuse Division, and this is to get the money to move for the government services analyst and the 2 painters. This removes 1 route and safety coordinator and $100,000 of the per performance budget from the Refuse Department. With that, I move that we adopt amendment number 21 to Board Bill number 1 as amended.
So moved.
Moved, seconded by the Alderman from the 6th. Call for previous roll from the Alderwoman from the 6th. Hearing no objection, we have adopted amendment number 21 to Board Bill number 1 as amended. And with that, I think we have adopted. Did I miss any amendments from the committee? Anything that you all felt needed to be done that wasn't read off? Okay, with that, Alderman Aldridge, you are recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I think these amendments will, even though the board has a little bit of power when it comes to budget, and we get the budget at a very kind of last minute from the board alderman, I think we have done a really good job during this budget committee to try to digest and support as many departments, I think, through these amendments that will be elected to make our city budget stronger for the constituents of the city of St. Louis. I am deeply grateful of the support of this committee and how we have worked very quickly, even during some challenging times, understanding that it was moments that we kind of need to take a pause, but still have to move this budget, because if we don't by July 1st, we wouldn't have moved it through the Board of Aldermen. So I hope ENA will take these amendments and recommendations up to improve this, and then look forward to voting it out from this committee to the floor. And with that, I would ask for a do pass recommendation on Board Bill number 1 as amended, as we send it back to ENA.
Yes, thank you, Chair Aldridge. I really appreciate your comments. And I do think it's important that we show some solidarity and unity in passing this budget. And so with that, I would move that we pass this in bank.
Second.
Previous row.
Moved by myself, seconded by the Alderman with the 6th, and a call for previous roll from
Alderman with the 7th.
sorry, 7th. Thank you for the correction. And call for previous roll from the Alderman with the 14th. Hearing no objection, this is now in bank, being sponsored by every member of this committee. And with that, I'll accept a motion for a do pass recommendation for, well, one second. Alderman Sonia, you had some comments?
I just had one comment. I had a lot of conversation with the Neighborhood Stabilization Department about the vehicle for them to get access to. I think the committee knows I sent an email where we estimate about $80,000 for 2 cars. We decided that the department would try to get access through the municipal garage process. There's been some initial conversations with the comptroller's office where they think they may be able to go about it that way. So for the sake of that, we just decided not to move forward with the cars. But I do look forward to hearing how that kind of works over the next year, and if they have any problems being able to get them some vehicles through next year's budget process. Just noting that a lot of the neighborhood improvement specialists are pulling 12-hour shifts or more, helping with the things that are going on in the tornado, driving through the debris and other circumstances, and really want them to have the support that they need. I highly encourage the comptroller's office to do whatever needs to be done to get them access to those vehicles in whatever ways I can be helpful, want to. But I just wanted to put that conversation on record in some kind of way, since there's not a formal amendment to go along with it.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman. Very much support the neighborhood stabilization team getting vehicles. We know they use their personal vehicles much like we do, and that often leads them all over the place in the city, and that is an absolute need. So appreciate you paying attention to that. With that, if there is no more discussion, I will accept a motion for a do pass. Well, one second. Getting one clarification before we move on.
Sorry about that, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm glad we embanked Board Bill number 1 as amended. Instead of passing this out, we are going to hold it in committee before we send it to the floor, because it has to go to E&A.
Right. Thank you for the reminder. So the process, just so that everyone's aware, is that E&A now needs to make the official changes, and then it will come back before this committee where we will pass it out to the Board of Aldermen. So this time I will not accept any motions because the sponsor of the bill, the primary sponsor, has requested that we table this for now. So thank you, Alderman Aldridge. And with that, I will hand the chairmanship back to you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Browning, for chairing during that time. With that, I will move to the next item on the agenda, which will be, Madam Clerk, do we have any acknowledgement of written testimony?
We have none.
All right, announcement.
I didn't see any.
There was one, I'll forward it to you, Madam Clerk. There was one that Alderman Schweitzer sent over to members of the committee.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll make sure we get that written testimony in so that they can be in the record. Announcements, we will be meeting this Thursday at, is it 10 o'clock? Budget Committee will be meeting Thursday. It's already scheduled up on the calendar so that we can take the changes, hopefully E&A adopts them all to be able to send it to the floor. Any other announcements? All righty. With that, Madam Clerk, please do not excuse the Alderwoman from the 12th, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, second by the Alderman from the 9th, that we adjourn. All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.